But me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the Command Post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So today has been a very eventful day, as most of you know. We're getting ever so close to Daniel Snyder relinquishing his reign of terror over this organization for the better part of the last 23 years. We're at the, literally outside of the goal line at this point. A quarterback sneak should get it done. And I'm finding it hard to contain myself in terms of excitement, but I'm going to continue to keep it buttoned up until this thing is officially done. But as of right now, there is a deal in principle agreed to with the group of Michael Harris, Magic Johnson, Mitchell Rails, and that group for $6 billion, roughly $6.05 billion. Now, it's a non-exclusive deal, meaning anybody could swoop in here at the last second. And now we're talking about, formalities. It seems like a foregone conclusion. If there were more options, I don't think they would have put themselves in this position to be finalizing anything. So this is it. I mean, unless there's going to be some desperate late option that swoops in here at the last second, that's why this is non-exclusive right now. If it was exclusive, much like the franchise tag, if it's non-exclusive, then other teams can sign that player to an offer sheet, which the team has a chance to match. If it's exclusive, you can't talk to anybody else but us. So being that it's non-exclusive, it's open for someone to swoop in. But at the end of the day, do we really care? No, we don't. I think a lot of you have already wrapped your brain around this particular ownership group here of Harris, Johnson, and Rails. At this point, I just want Daniel Snyder to sign his name on the dotted line, take his money, and go much faster than slow so we can move on with our fandom and start to feel like we have a shot at doing something other than spinning our wheels in place, knowing that you can never win anything of note with Daniel Snyder owning this team. We can finally leave that dark cloud behind us and move to brighter, much sunnier days and start playing some football that may actually matter here in the near future. So it's exciting stuff. I can't lie to you, but nothing's official yet. But it's close. I can't stress that enough. It's close. Anyway, we'll talk about that, throughout the course of the evening. I would presume. We're gonna talk ball tonight. We're gonna talk about the draft. We are officially 2 weeks away from the NFL draft. This time, 2 weeks from now, Washington should be getting ready to get on the clock. I mean, it's right around 9:40 Eastern Standard Time. The draft starts roughly around 8, maybe 8:10 after the owner comes out, if they do a little ceremony at the beginning of the draft. And then after that, you're off and you're running. The draft is usually 3 hours in time, maybe 3 hours and 30 minutes. So 11:30-ish is when it's over the first round, usually somewhere in that neighborhood. We're right at that midpoint, which is where Washington's first round pick is, right at the midpoint. So we would probably either be on the clock right about now or, preparing to be on the clock, or we just finished making a decision, whether it's a selection or trading back, something of that sort. So we're not that far removed from when we'll be talking about adding some players, to this roster to kind of complete what has been a very active and what I think has been a very impactful offseason. It's not finished. And even after the draft, it may not be done. As I spoke about earlier, that post-draft free agency period is something that Washington has not been bashful about in the past. And so we'll see if they continue to sniff around that market. But I want to talk about some things with this team and what I think they may ultimately do. I want to ask you guys something before we get into the discussion tonight. There have been a couple of things that you guys have thrown at me over the last week or two, and I told you, hey, give me a second, I'll get back to you, I'll make a decision, I'll watch some film, give me some time. And so there are a couple of guys that I would love to talk about tonight. But have you guys been watching the Commanders log, the little series that they're putting together? It's actually some really good stuff. I've said this already before. I think when Julie and company first took over, you could see a stark difference between pre-Julie and company taking over the social media department and the communication between fans and the fan experience, and all the social media platforms, whether it's Twitter or IG or YouTube channel, all of the shows. Once they got rid of Larry Michael and put Julie in charge, it wasn't a token move. A lot of the things that they did when there was all that turmoil and, the Washington Post article came out and they started firing guys. Larry Michael was not fired. He decided to retire. But, they got rid of some of the other guys that were in that article that were harassing women and making it a very unsatisfactory and borderline chauvinistic workplace. They started to do a lot of diversity things to try to, take some of the heat off of them and say, hey, look at what we're doing. We're taking steps to become a better organization. One of those things that kind of got swept under the rug was Julie Donaldson really taking over all of the social media and mass communications, portion of this team. And the content has been better. They still have some issues and they still have, a ways to go with the audio levels at these press conferences and things of that nature. We still can't seem to get that all the way right. But the content has been much better. It's been much cleaner. The social media accounts have been much better. They still have a little ways to go. Sometimes they appear a bit tone deaf, but for the most part, everything's been much, much better. And one of the things that they've done a better job of is letting us in as fans. One of the things I was a little bit jealous of, I'm not going to lie, is other fan bases would send me clips or, hey, you should check this out. I know you're a football fan. And it would be like behind the scenes access of what's going on inside of the facility. They follow the coaches around during the draft, or like the Colts had this thing, like I think it's called like Inside the Shoe or something like that, and it's their draft coverage, and they're following around Chris Ballard and they're going in the war room and you're listening to these discussions they're having about players and they're putting their boards together. And this shit is just fascinating. I sit there and I eat that stuff up. And I'm like, I'd love to see something like that. I don't want any parts of Hard Knocks necessarily, but that kind of stuff right there, like Hard Knocks is put on the platter for everyone to consume. This is being put up on the Washington Commanders YouTube channel. If you're not a fan of the team, you're not perusing their YouTube channel, right? So I like that kind of stuff. I like throughout the course of the season the mic'd up segment that they do with the players. And so, hey, I'm the feds, or, whatever the case may be, and that dialogue that goes on, and they take us behind the scenes. I love that stuff, right? So this series is I think maybe 2 or 3 steps further than that. They're chronicling the offseason. I think they understand that this is a really big offseason. And I'm not sure if they did this last year. Maybe they did this last year as well. I wouldn't be surprised to go back and see that they did this last year and I just wasn't interested. But I've talked about this offseason being a much bigger offseason. And this is the biggest. I've said this already. This is the biggest offseason in franchise history. And it started with them firing Scott Turner, which was the absolute right thing to do. And then it moved to, all right, well, what are we going to do to replace him? Because firing him is half the battle. You got to get a guy in here that excites us, that gives us a fighting chance, that we believe in. They hired Eric Bieniemy. Check that box. All right, free agency. We need to attack free agency aggressively early. Could they have done something more at linebacker? Sure. I don't think we were really enthused by what they did, but maybe he turns out to be a really good player in Cody Barton. Maybe we're wrong or I'm wrong. I can't speak for you. I can't tell you how you feel about Cody Barton. I wasn't thrilled with the move, but maybe he turns out to be a damn good football player. Maybe they're right about him. Maybe they finally get it right at the linebacker position. Love that they were aggressive on the offensive line. Nick Gates and Andrew Wiley, come out the gate swinging. They re-signed a lot of their own guys. The Daron Payne move was so good. Did you see the money that the Titans defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons got? What did I tell you? Get in early because these other guys are going to come in, and with each deal, the number is going to go up. Jeffrey Simmons gets his deal, and he's slotted right underneath Aaron Donald as the second highest paid defensive tackle in the NFL. And guess what's going to happen? When the Jets sign Quentin Williams, he's going to leapfrog Jeffrey Simmons and become the second highest paid defensive tackle, not named Aaron Donald. And our guy's deal is just going to keep sliding back. But he got good money, and he was first, and that's why that was important, and they got it right. So that was another big thing. Get Daron Payne's deal done. But they also brought back other guys that we thought they should bring back. A lot of us said, hey, F.A. Obata was pretty good last year. They brought him back. Got no issues with that. We love Jeremy Reeves. Brought him back. Rightfully so. Pro Bowl player this year. And he earned that. He earned it. They did a lot of good things. Brought back Danny Johnson. I love that move. But everything surrounded the ownership group. Could we get new ownership? And we're in the process of doing that. And I think they understood that this is going to be a big offseason. So they're following around. They're actually have the foresight to get footage of everything that's happening this offseason. And it started week 18 against Dallas. Now, they probably have been getting footage all season long. But they started episode 1 with week 18 against Dallas and Rivera's message to the team after that game. And as they hit those exit meetings, I love the fact that they had all the guys that us as fans look at as building block type players. For the most part, Chase Young was in there, and we don't really know where he stands in the organization. I'm a Chase Young fan. I believe in Chase Young. I think he's going to have a really good season. A lot of people have quit on him. We'll see what happens. Our fans do the thing that they do every time they, have rid themselves mentally of a player. They start throwing that guy's name in every single deal that comes up. The latest player is Devin White. Hey, give him a second round pick and throw in Chase Young, or trade them Chase Young straight up for him. That's the new thing now, right? Every time you don't want a guy, you just start throwing him in a deal. 2 years ago, it was Jonathan Allen. Last year, it was Daron Payne. And then this year, it's now Chase Young. Every year we do this thing, right? Where the guy that we think we're not going to re-sign, because the first guy was Jonathan Allen. After Chase Young had that Rookie of the Year campaign as a defensive player, Rookie of the Year in 2020, well, he's definitely going to be around, right? Montez Sweat had a big year that year, had a breakout year. He's going to be around, all right? And we weren't going to give up on Payne yet. So the guy that was the odd man out was Jonathan Allen. Hey, get rid of Jonathan Allen, okay? Trade him, put him in deals. Then you realize, no, Jonathan Allen should be here. Hey, start throwing Payne in every deal. Oh, we want Deshaun Watson. Hey, give them Daron Payne. Throw Daron Payne in the deal. Give them some picks and give them Daron Payne. Then you realize, damn, he's really good. Okay, pivot. Give them Chase Young. That's the thing we're doing now. So that probably means he's due for a big year this year. But they had those leaders of the team, those building block guys. And that's how you know they think they're really good, because they threw those guys in on a one-on-one session. It was Juice. It was Jonathan Allen. It was Chase Young. It was Terry McLaurin. It was Jeremy Reeves. Guys that we feel like are big parts of this football team. And they sat down and they talked about the season, talked about the future of this organization, talked about the fans. Of course, these were pointed questions. And I thought it was well done, the first episode. Then episode 2 dropped today. And that was more so centered around Eric Bieniemy's hire. We got to see some things with that we hadn't previously gotten to see. And then they had EB sit down, and he's starting to get comfortable, and had him talk about this position and everything that's going on. And then they transitioned to Daron Payne signing his deal. And we got to see a side of Daron Payne that a lot of people aren't privy to. And I love that. He talked about his mom having lupus and all of the things that she's gone through. And so they got a little personal with him. That's a different side of Daron. It was fun to see him go around the entire facility and give credit to all the people that have helped him get to the point where he's at, where he's signing that massive deal. And it was funny when he went down to the equipment staff and he was like, hey, I'm about to be bothering y'all for another 4 years. I know I'm going to be here now. And he was like, hey, man, I appreciate y'all when I come down here and worry y'all to death about 2 shirts, an extra pair of pants, 2 pair of cleats every day. And so it's just fun to see those interactions, man, right? So many people help these dudes get to where they are that you don't see that are behind the scenes. And it was funny to hear Ron Rivera, joke with Andrew Wiley because he's given the tour to the three veterans that they signed in free agency: Andrew Wiley, Nick Gates, and Jacoby Brissett. They were all touring the facility at the same time with Ron Rivera. He was showing them the cafeteria, different places, and he was like, this is what happened when we had COVID. We turned this area down here into a cafeteria, and we had it sectioned off, and the offensive linemen were on the other side. And Andrew Wiley was like, yeah, we did the same thing in Kansas City. We had a area down at the bottom where we ate. And he said, oh, okay. And then Rivera looks at the camera and he says, see, we're not the only team that did it. And both of us got poor grades. So that was funny to me because he was referencing the team facilities and the grades that everybody received. They did a whole thing with, facilities and I forgot all the things that they were ranking with these organizations. Washington was like dead last, and the Chiefs were like 29th. And, people, took it and ran with it all. This is why Washington's a terrible organization. And the Chiefs were like 3 spots above us. And they're the Super Bowl champions, and they've been to 5 consecutive AFC championships and been to 3 of the last 5 Super Bowls. So whatever, right? But it was funny to hear Ron make a joke about that because Andrew Wiley came from Kansas City. He said they're doing the same thing. And he's like, hey, no wonder you guys got a bad grade. You did the same shit as us. Anyway, it was just fun. It's a really good job, well done by the social media team. And they're doing a hell of a job. Julie and company, got to give credit where credit is due. And I'm looking forward to the rest of that series. The next episode is going to be centered around them going to the Senior Bowl and then the Combine, and they're going to be sitting down talking to a whole bunch of media types and different people, talking about how big of a offseason it is for the organization and the new direction that they're going to be going in, with new ownership coming in more likely than not. And so if you haven't checked it out, the first video is roughly 13 minutes long. The second video is 23 minutes. Carve out some time to watch it. It's a good series. And if you're a fan, that's the kind of stuff that you should be dialed into. So anyway, I digress. So tonight, I want to start by talking about a few prospects, a couple of positions that you guys had brought up over the last week or two. And I said, hey, I'm going to get on it. I've already talked about one of the players. You guys asked me about the linebacker from Tulane last week. I wrote his name down on my list. I guess got to get my list out. Dorian Williams. He was one of the visits. So clearly Washington was listening to some of you guys, because they had him in for one of their official 30 visits. So they must be interested in him. And I've already given you my thoughts on Dorian Williams. But there are a couple of guys that I told you I was going to check out. One in particular, and that was Penn State cornerback Joey Porter Jr. Now, we talked about him last week. I said that I was pseudo on the fence about him. I've watched enough of him to know that I like him, but I don't love him. But I'm not sure if I like him enough to take him at 16. Where do I stand? I said, I need to do some more film work, and then I'll come back and tell you how I feel about him. Well, I did that. And I'm here to tell you that I don't love Joey Porter Jr. That said, another thing that I don't love is the lack of ball production. And this is another reason why if Ron and company are stressing taking the ball away, he doesn't necessarily fit what you're looking for. Now, I see him more as a man-to-man cover corner, a guy that likes to press at the line of scrimmage and run with, receivers. He's very, very handsy. But I said the same thing about Benjamin St-Juste, and he's been solid. Now, he's been flagged, right? We've seen our fair share of flags from Benjamin St-Juste in the league, but for the most part, he's been behaving himself as Juice outside. So you can get better in that department, but I don't love him. There are other guys in this draft that I would much rather see us take. And it may not be at 16. What it ultimately boils down to is the guy that I truly love in this draft, the cornerback position, is Christian Gonzalez. Every single corner in this draft, I'll just say this, there isn't a single guy without flaws in this draft at the cornerback position. There have been years where the guy at the top of the draft doesn't have any flaws. Last year's draft, I would have taken either one of those two corners, the kid from LSU or Sauce Gardner. I didn't think you could go wrong with either one of them. I actually had the LSU corner, Derek Stingley Jr., slightly above Sauce Gardner, and Gardner ended up going on to be the defensive rookie of the year last year. So it doesn't mean Stingley won't end up being an exceptional corner in this league, but those two guys really didn't have many flaws. If you wanted to nitpick with Stingley, there were some items there that you could nitpick, especially the fact that he had gotten injured and he had, his best ball probably was played in his freshman year, but everything was there with Stingley. Ball skills, the ability to run, tackling, it was all there. You just had to go and find it because it just hadn't happened as recent as you would like it to have had. But with these corners, there's something missing, whether it's size if you're talking about Devon Witherspoon, it's size, right? Probably not. He's not necessarily the best in off coverage. But man, is he physical and will he tackle? his tape is so fun to watch because he'll just come up and light you up and have no problems doing it. Has no problem staying in phase, loves to challenge guys man to man. And you wish you could take that temperament and put it in Christian Gonzalez because he's the direct opposite. He wants no part of the smoke. He doesn't want to tackle. He doesn't want to be physical really at all. If he can avoid it, he will. But everything else, cover-wise, there's no smoother athlete, more natural corner in this draft. Natural feet, ability to drive on the football, ball skills, all of it in one package, size, length, everything you're looking for. That's Christian Gonzalez. He just doesn't want to tackle. And that's a problem for some teams. Because you need physicality out there at the cornerback position. We saw what a lack of physicality or an aloof player outside can do for your defense in William Jackson III. We had jet sweeps and all kinds of stupid shit going for touchdowns because the guy on the outside fell asleep behind the damn wheel. And you're like, what the hell is going on? A simple jet sweep should not get all the way to the outside and down the sideline for a 58-yard gain when you're trying to get back in the game against Detroit. But that's because you got a dude that really wasn't paying attention, didn't want to tackle, all that good stuff. So you're giving up stuff. So, you know, there's something there with Gonzalez that you don't love. But at the end of the day, he's excellent. You know, Joey Porter Jr., he lacks body control. He's all over the damn place. He's grabbing. Sometimes he can't put on the brakes, so he's got to grab so that he can put the brakes on. Doesn't have a ton of ball production. I don't want to hear that he wasn't targeted. Shit, in the first game of the season against Purdue, they went after him like he was some chump. And I watched Charlie Jones digging his ass. He had 6 PBUs in that game. Should have had a pick. Which is why I don't want to hear about the lack of ball production. He had an opportunity to make a play in that game. But Joey Porter Jr. is to me what Washington is looking for. Except he's not taking the football away. But you won't find a longer corner pause in this draft. The man's got 34-inch arms. That's tackle length. At corner. You won't find a corner that fits today's NFL more so than Joey Porter Jr. We need a guy that can play man-to-man. But we play so much zone that it is imperative that you are able to play cover 3. Able to play cover 4. I think you can do that. If they took him at 16, I wouldn't be ecstatic. I wouldn't be upset because he's got a high ceiling. But I also think the floor on him can be very low as well. But we'll see. I've watched a lot of corners. Cam Smith. Obviously, we've talked about all the guys Washington has talked to. Terrell Smith out of Minnesota. We talked about the Mississippi State corner. Forbes, Emmanuel Forbes. I mean, Clark Phillips III. There's so many corners in this year's draft class. Keely Ringo is another name. We haven't really talked about him much because he's not a guy you take at 16. But if you trade back, he's in that range. I don't love Keely Ringo. But you can do a hell of a lot worse. You can do a hell of a lot worse. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I've seen people, Julius Brents at 47. That's the guy you want. Nah, I'm good. I watched Julius Brents not once, but twice get his ass cooked. Cooked by Johnston, the TCU receiver. I mean, destroyed Julius Brents, not once, twice. If he can't cover Johnston, what do you think he's going to do in the league? Not everybody looks like Johnston and runs like him, but Everybody's just as damn good. So I don't know about Julius Brents either, man. He's got some game though. Don't sleep on him. But I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. I'll just tell you that. I'll say that. But I watched Joey Porter Jr. I don't love him, and I'd prefer to go in a different direction if we're being honest with one another. But if they took him at 16, because I think that's where they're considering him. If they're going to take, he'll be around. I feel really confident saying he'll be on the board at 16. I don't think anybody's going to take him before we get an opportunity at 16. So if they love him, they'll have a chance to select him. I can't say the same for Devon Witherspoon, and I definitely can't say the same for Christian Gonzalez. But if Joey Porter Jr. will be on the board at 16, I think they know that, which is why they had him in for an interview. They're not wasting the official visits on guys that they won't have a chance to select. They could have had a Christian Gonzalez in there. They pretty much know he'll be gone before they get an opportunity to select him. Not to say that they won't ultimately try to have an interview with him in an official visit, but I think they know he's not going to be there. Let's not waste a visit on him. You know, Witherspoon could be there. I doubt it. Anyway, so I wanted to make that known. This weekend, Saturday, I am going to release my 7-round Washington Commanders mock draft. Currently, the Commanders have 8 selections, 1 in each round, 2 in the 6th round. Okay, which gives you a grand total of 8. I don't think they're going to trade back this year. Last year was pretty much a foregone conclusion that they were going to trade out of that number 11 pick. I'm not saying that it won't happen this year. And if everything aligns and the stars are all set up for them to trade out of 16, I could see them doing that. I don't think they're going to do that, however. To me, I think they're going to stand pat, make a selection. Not to say that they won't trade back in other rounds. They could trade back in the 2nd round. They could trade back in the 3rd round, trade out of the 3rd round altogether. They have a compensatory 3rd round pick. So you're not that far away from the 4th round at that point. You could trade out of the 3rd round, pick up an extra 4th and a 5th, or you can pick up an extra 4th and a 3rd next year, right? Or you can pick up an extra 5th this year and a 3rd next year, or a extra 4th this year and a 4th next year, and move back and not have a 3rd round pick altogether. Who's to say what they decide to do? You could package up this year's 4th and one of those 6 rounders and move back up into the 3rd again. Who's to say that they don't do something like that? I'm going to give you a little glimpse into my mind and how it works. I'm not going to give you the player that I selected, but I did focus on one position in particular, punt returner. I think they're going to take a receiver that is the position that I think they're going to designate to handle the return duties. They can't be oblivious to what we've done at punt and kickoff returns. I don't think anything's wrong with what we got out of Antonio Gibson. He almost broke one last year for a touchdown. But I think they understand that he shouldn't be on punt return or kickoff returns. And 2, they need to upgrade the punt return position. They can't be okay with what we got out of it last year. And thus, I think they have to do something. And I don't think Dax Milne the receiver should be safe either, frankly, because if you're bringing a guy here to return punts, potentially kickoffs as well, you're going to need that guy to play receiver too. So obviously, if Milne is on the roster to return punts, he probably is in danger of not being on the team because or at least he would be on the practice squad. They would release him and try to bring him back to the practice squad. But I think they should be pushing him. He should not be comfortable this year. That said, I have them taking care of that in day 3 of the draft. And there are 3 guys that I've circled on my radar. And Washington has spoken to each and every single one of these dudes, some more than others. So I do think there is some interest. I do. And again, I've said this about Ron. He's no dummy. I'm pretty sure they're aware, him and Martin Mayhew are aware that we were one of the worst teams in punt returns last season. This needs to be addressed. We're not good enough to squander opportunities anywhere on the football field. Any opportunity to get this football team better, to make things easier for the offense, we need to be taking full advantage of that. So 3 guys stand out for me. Each of them are a little different in their own special, unique way. Some offer you a little bit more as a receiver. Some offer you more as a return man. Some offer you a combination of both. One may be faster than the others, but they all bring something to the table that this team can utilize. So I'll give you the 3 dudes. I'm not going to tell you which one I put in the mock, but one of these guys is in my mock draft. So first guy is a guy that is one of my favorite players in this year's draft. I've already stated this on the podcast, but I love Nathaniel Dell, aka Tank Dell, out of Houston. Put up big numbers for the Cougs the last 2 years as a receiver. Had a return for a touchdown this year, which was his lone return. So he hasn't been as prolific a return man, but he has that capability. If you watch that one return he had this year for the touchdown, and you watch him as a receiver and you see how they get the ball in his hands, there's a catch against Cincinnati. Can't remember if it was 2021 or if it was this year. But it's a catch against Cincinnati where he catches it, makes a dude miss, spins on another guy, cuts back against the grain, and takes off for this big gain on a play that should have been maybe 12 yards. And he turns it into like a 52-yard gain. And that's that punt return ability that he has. Make guys miss, accelerate. I think he's faster than the 4.49 that he posted at the combine. It looks like he plays faster than that to me. But 4.49 is plenty fast, okay? We got Dax Milne back there who's probably running a 4.54 or something, 4.56. That may be generous. I don't remember what Dax Milne ran at the combine, but it looks like he's running in slow motion, right? It looks like he's slow motion for me, moving slow motion for me. That's what it looks like every time Dax catches it. I don't like it like that. So Tank Dell is a guy that is a dynamic receiver, actually can run routes. I think he's one of the better route runners in this year's draft class. Like, go watch him at the Senior Bowl, break dudes off, something proper. I mean, it's nasty what he's out there doing. I would love to add him because remember, Dax was the other slot guy, opposite of Curtis Samuel. So when we would go to some 4 wide receiver sets, or when we would have Curtis on the sideline, or they would be giving somebody a blow. Remember the touchdown he caught against Minnesota? Little in and out route, right? That's a slot route, right? That's a route you want shifty, quick guys running. That's what Tank Dell is made to do. And he can do so much more. So while he can be a return guy and has the ability, he had a touchdown this year, only one in his career though. He offers you that ability, but he's more of a receiver. But he's capable, fully capable. Love Tank Dell. Then there's Charlie Jones. And Charlie Jones had a hell of a journey. Started out at Buffalo and, wasn't getting a ton of run there as a receiver, but kind of carved out a niche for himself as a return man there. Then transferred to Iowa, where he really carved out a niche for himself as a return man, made some headway there. Then he transferred, the portal opened up, and we see a lot of these guys doing this, took advantage of that COVID situation and the extra year of eligibility. He moved on to Purdue for his final year of college ball this past year and lit it up, put up big time numbers, over 100 catches, big time yardage. I told you he blessed Joey Porter Jr. and company in week 1. Go watch that game. You want to see the best of Charlie Jones. Go watch him against Penn State. Light them up. They knew he was getting the football. And my thing is, this is something that really bothered me with, and you know, it's college football, and not every coordinator, you know, buys into this. But if I'm in college in particular, if a dude is doing me, I mean, just absolutely bending me over and doing me, pause. I'm gonna take my best corner and say, all right, let's just dead all this shit. If you are who you say you are, you a first round corner, put that boy to sleep. Give him a pillow and a blanket and say, it's nighttime. It's night. Get him a blanket. Put him to sleep. That's what big time corners do. Enough of this shit already. Charlie Jones shouldn't be digging in our ass. Put him to sleep. They waited to the end of the game to try to put JPJ on him, and he started blessing him too. He can get work as well. Like, Purdue wasn't afraid of him. That's how you have 6 pass breakups in a game. You don't have 6 pass breakups. If I respect you in college football, I'm not even throwing at you. Let's see what this other dude on the opposite side of you is all about. I don't want none of you. But when you don't take it away, I'm not afraid. I'll come challenge you. What's the penalty for challenging you? You're not going to make me pay for it. I get to do it all over again. The best you're going to do is break it up. So what's stopping me from coming over there and challenging you? But Charlie Jones is also a dynamic punt returner. 2 career returns for touchdowns, 1 on a punt, 1 on a kickoff. So that shows you he can do both, which we need a guy that can do both, not just comfortable as a punt returner. Tank Dell, more of just a punt returner, not necessarily. He can be a kickoff return man, but hasn't shown the ability to be dynamic back there, whereas Charlie Jones has shown the ability to do both. So, and again, Charlie Jones ran Moses Malone 4.44 40. So he can run. He's got the quickness to get in and out of breaks. I like Charlie Jones, and he's a guy that I think will be there in those later rounds. You know, Tank Dell, not so much. I think Tank Dell's probably going to be gone somewhere in those mid rounds, starting with the 3rd round. I think Tank Dell becomes a real commodity that somebody is looking to add to their football team. I'm not sure that Tank Dell gets out of day 2. If he does, he'll be gone early day 3. That's my expectation. I could be wrong about that. We'll see what happens with this receiver class. It's very interesting because a lot of people are down on this receiver draft class, but there's some guys in there. There's some guys. And Charlie Jones is one of them. And he can offer you some return ability. And so he's a much better return man to me than Tank Dell is. More natural, I should say. Doesn't mean he's better. I think he's more natural and can do both, kickoffs and punts. Think Tank Dell offers you more as a receiver, but Charlie Jones isn't that far behind. And then there's Darius Davis of TCU. He's the most natural of the return men. 6 career return touchdowns in his career. All right. Now, the thing I don't love about him is he's an angle beater. So he's one of those guys that wants to run because he's really small. Most of these guys are. Most of these guys, with the exception of Charlie Jones, who's roughly 5'10", 11, probably more like 5'11". These guys are 5'8", $180, you know. So these are smaller dudes, bucks, you know, 65, 70. Dudes that small usually aren't trying to get hit. So Darius Davis is one of those dudes. He much rather run to the sidelines and try to outrun your angle, which when you run a 4.36, you can do that. Was it 4.36? Yeah, 4.36. You can do that. You can get away with that. pure speed. Like I said, angle beating speed. And he's a natural return man, been doing it his entire career. Like, that's his primary duty. He's evolving as a receiver, but he's not there. So if you draft him, you're pretty much getting a return man at this point that you hope can help you as a receiver. He's more of a guy that you get it to on a jet sweep. You throw a wide receiver screen to, because again, the thing I love about return guys is when you get it to them in space, they turn into return men. One or two blocks and they're off to the races. That's one of the problems. We don't have a guy like that on our team. Curtis Samuel is probably the closest we have. Jahan Dotson has that ability. He showed it to us in the Giants game when he caught that pass on that shallow cross, broke away from that defender, spun on that other defender and got into the end zone. He showed you that he's got a punt return background because he turned into a return man once he got out into space. We need more of that on our team. Darius Davis is one of those dudes where you get him into space and he'll do the rest. I got it. I can showcase the speed. Not really breaking anybody off per se. That's more of a Tank Dell thing. Charlie Jones isn't really breaking anybody off either, although he can. I've seen it. That's not Darius Davis's thing. He's looking more so to run around you, run by you. But it all works. It all works. But he's not the receiver that the other two are. Dell is the best receiver of the three, a little bit lesser of a return man, but he can offer you that. You get, I think, the best combination of both with Charlie Jones out of Purdue. And then you primarily are getting a return man in Darius Davis. Not so much a receiver, but he can be a threat with the ball in his hands. You just got to find ways to get him involved. So those are the three guys that I've keyed in on. One of them will show up in my mock draft, and they have to do something there. Even if they don't draft a guy, one of the undrafted guys needs to be someone that threatens that position in Dax Milne. They shouldn't feel comfortable with Dax Milne as our primary return man next season. They shouldn't feel comfortable with that. I'd take it a step further. Knowing that Curtis Samuel is going into the last year of his deal, knowing that last year when Jahan got injured, it kind of felt like we weren't quite back in that 2021 mode where it was just Terry, because we still had Curtis, and Curtis was cool. But without Jahan, it felt like we were lacking another outside weapon, another threat on the outside. 2 out of the 3 dudes that I just talked about can offer you some of that if something were to go awry elsewhere with someone getting injured. You never felt that way with like a Dax Milne, like he could just fill in and we'd be fine. That last dude at receiver should also still be a threat. Maybe they should have used Cam Sims a little bit more last year, but they didn't. So, anyway, I digress. So, I think when it's all said and done, as I continue to gather as much information as I can to try to put this mock draft together, they are hell-bent on not reaching for players. I love that. But at the same token, I do feel like they're going to try to knock down their biggest needs. Like, I don't believe Ron Rivera when he says it's best player available. I believe that it's best player available at a position of need. If it would truly be PA, every single position would be on the table, including quarterback. Now, I'm not a proponent of taking quarterback when you feel like you've got your guy. early in the draft. So there's certain positions you don't need duplicates of if you already got one. Now, we don't know if we have a quarterback, which is why that should be on the table if you're truly going the BPA method. If you've already got a quarterback, if you've already got a left tackle, then you don't need another one of those. If you've already got starting tackles, you don't need to draft another one. That doesn't make sense. There's only one left tackle, one right tackle on the field, and if you've got one of each, you don't need to spend a high draft pick on a guy that should theoretically not be playing if the other two guys are healthy. That's dumb, right? Whereas in quarterback, same thing, right? If you got Patrick Mahomes, why do you need to spend a first-round pick on a quarterback? That's stupid. You would never do that, right? Now you take a 5th or a 6th-round guy, like the Patriots used to do every other year with Tom Brady, develop that guy and then flip him for a 2nd or a 1st-round pick down the road. But you would never take a guy in the 1st or 2nd or 3rd round when you got Tom Brady at quarterback. They did take Jimmy Garoppolo in the 2nd round, I believe. It was either the 2nd or the 3rd. But they actually thought that Jimmy was the successor to Tom Brady. And if Belichick had his way, he would have traded Tom Brady because he tried to trade Tom Brady so he could keep Jimmy Garoppolo. He tried. And Robert Kraft said, the hell you will. Matter of fact, you trade Jimmy Garoppolo's ass, we keeping Tom Brady. That's how that went down. But I said that to say this. We don't love our left tackle, so that should be on the table, and it is. We don't have a quarterback yet. I think we do, but he's not proven yet. We can't say that for certain. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. He's not Joe Burrow. He's not, Justin Herbert. So we can't say that. But I think they understand that the two biggest needs right now on this team are offensive line. And honestly, you can't go wrong in any offensive line position. We could use a center, we could use a guard, or a tackle. Who's starting at right tackle for us right now? Is it Andrew Wiley? We don't even know. Charles Leno is not the future at left tackle. He's serviceable. Could you kick him to right tackle? Start a new guy at left tackle? Kick Wiley inside to left guard or right guard? You could, theoretically. Take Cosme, put him at the other guard spot. Vice versa. I don't think they're going to do musical chairs on the offensive line. I don't see Leno moving. I don't see Wiley going anywhere. Cosme is either right tackle or right guard. I don't see them flipping him to the left side, whether it's guard or tackle. I don't see that happening. So I don't think they're going to do too much moving, when it comes to offensive line. So I think they're going to keep it simple. Don't see them taking a tackle. That's another guy that I wanted to talk to you guys about. So the best offensive lineman in this year's draft class, and you probably already know this, Louie T, it's Peter Skoronski. Had a chance to watch him, and he's the cleanest prospect. And if he had the size requirements, he'd be the number 1 tackle off the board. He's going to be the first offensive lineman drafted. I firmly believe that. And I'm always a proponent of force him to make you move him to guard. Just like when we drafted Brandon Sheriff at 5, we thought he was a tackle. He came to camp, had 1 practice, and Jay Gruden said he's a guard. Kick him inside. And everybody knew Sheriff was going to ultimately play guard because his arms weren't long enough. That's the problem with Peter Skoronski, is that he's got 32-inch arms, 32 and some change. The prerequisite for a tackle, a starting tackle, is 33-inch arms. That's the baseline. If I can't get that out of you, then it's going to be a struggle. And why is that important? Because you're dealing with guys like Montez Sweat with vines for arms as defensive ends. If they can get to your chest before you can get to theirs, well, now you're on skates. Now the pocket is collapsing. Now your quarterback is uneasy. Now he's flushing the pocket. Now we can't get shit done. Guys inside these defensive tackles, they're not 6'6" and 6'5" and 6'4" with 4-inch arms like the defensive ends and the edge rushers are. These guys are 6'1", 6'2" inside. They've got 31-inch arms. Now that guy with 32 and 3/4 inch arms, He's comfortable. He can operate inside. Skoronski kind of fits into that mold, but boy, he was clean, man. His tape was clean. He was mopping dudes. Anyway, let's see what they decide to do. I think they're going to knock down, and a lot of the mock drafts have it, whether it's corner, offensive line, or offensive line corner. They've got us knocking down those needs in the first 2 rounds, and I think ultimately that's what we're going to do. Something's going to have to arise, whether it be a trade or a guy that they just didn't see being on the board at that time that they just can't afford to pass up. Something's going to have to alter their mindset. That is a total mind blow. Otherwise, I think they're going to stay status quo and stick to the script, which is, let's get us another corner, because last year when Juice went down, that really hurt us. And let's get us an offensive lineman, because we like what we've done, but we still got work to do on the offensive line. So let's go ahead and take care of that need. I really think they would love to get their hands on Osiris Torrance, because Ron continues to talk about wanting to be physical in the trenches and be a downhill team and be able to lean on teams and be physical on both sides of the football. In order to do that, we got to have guys that are more physical and dominant in the run game. That's what you truly want. You got to be able to protect the quarterback. You got to be able to score points. But one of the biggest problems we had last year was when we got in the red zone, we couldn't bully anybody. We couldn't announce to a team, hey, we running this shit right now, and you can't do a damn thing about it. Hey, watch out. We about to get in the end zone real quick. We couldn't put anybody's dick in the dirt when it mattered. That's part of the reason. Some of it was play calling, Scott Turner just being a complete numbskull and calling things that made absolutely no sense. But sometimes we'd line up and we weren't physical enough. We just weren't physical enough. 49ers game is a great example. I mean, how many tries did we get from like the 2-yard line? We couldn't get in. Are you kidding me? Man up. So I think they would love to get their hands on a guy like that, but we'll see how it works out for them. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the comment section. See what you guys have to say. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Big Money Sonny, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes, let's go, Lou. It's about damn time. Now, when you come in and chop it up in the Discord with the Cherry Squad, salutes, brother. You know what? I'm going to make it my business, my mission to get in there with y'all after the draft. You know, it's a little downtime. I do have another venture that I'm about to get up off the ground, but I'll have a little bit more free time after the draft is over. Things start to settle down. There's not as much to talk about. That would be a great time to get my little tutorial on the Discord thing, because there are other people that have said, hey, man, why don't you come check out our Discord? And I'm like, bro, I can't even tell you how to get to my own Discord, let alone checking your Discord out. So I could use a little quick tutorial on how to use it and get up in there and see what y'all talking about. So I promise in the next 2 months or so, May or June for sure, I'm going to jump in there with y'all and see what's going on, man. At least one time. Thank you for the super chat, Big Money Sonny. John Perez, my guy. JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, never thought I would see the day Snyder would be gone. That makes two of us. I think both of us are relatively young dudes, but you know how this thing goes, man. And Snyder's a relatively young owner in terms of NFL owner years. He's one of the younger ones. So I was like, this shit might not end well for us. You know, could be another 30 years before this dude decides to buy the farm. And I'm like, at that point, you know, what fandom will we have left? He might have drank, you know, because there's only so much of the shit that we've gone through. There's only so much of that you can take before it just totally drains whatever fandom you have left. You know, some of y'all were running on fumes. I can tell you this. I saw comments from people today that I haven't seen or heard from in months, and for some of them, years. Okay. These are people that, you know, I used to chop it up with on a regular basis. I ain't heard from them in months or years. And it's not uncommon for someone to just be a fan of the team when games are being played. Like, hey, wake me up when we actually playing games that matter. I don't care about free agency, the draft, none of that shit. Wake me up when we start playing games that actually count in the left or right-hand column. So I might not hear from them for 3-4 months and then they back. That's not uncommon. But for some of these dudes who I'm talking to year round for the last, you know, 3-4 years, and then for them to just go ghost and then show up conveniently the day that it's announced that Snyder's, you know, reportedly going to sell, that's not by accident. That's not a coincidence. Like, shit is fatiguing, man. It mentally drains you. When you pour in as much as we do as fans into this product, like, sometimes I don't think like the players understand how much we put into, which is why sometimes, and not all fans express it the right way, but that's why we get frustrated. And they get mad when, oh, you know, y'all supposed to be holding us down and this, that, and the third, but you ain't been through the shit we've been through. Now, I'm not one of those fans that turn on players and this, that, and the third, but still, you got to understand where we coming from. I get where you coming from. I understand what you're saying. You got to see it from our perspective too, though. And some people had checked out, man. They just had enough. Like, I can't deal with this shit no more. So I say that I'm down and I bleed burgundy, you know, and gold and all of that good stuff. But how many years of this Snyder shit before you go, man, how much do I really got left in the tank? And it was a while there where I was like, man, mentally, I tried to program myself to say, hey, bro, he ain't going nowhere. So you got to take your focus and put it on the shit that matters. Because if you focus on this Snyder shit, it's going to force you to not want to be a fan of this team. And so I made a conscious effort to try to not talk about that shit unless it was something that was so overt that I couldn't avoid it. But it was tough. It was tough. Now we don't have to worry about it. And I wasn't sure we would ever get to this point, JP. So I'm right there with you. It's not official, but it's a major step. Once that's over with, we can start healing as fans. Absolutely. Couldn't have said it any better myself. I don't expect the entire fan base to just reunite and come back as if nothing ever happened. It's a lot of healing that has to take place. You know the fastest way to heal? You know the best healing, you know, power or solution or winning. Winning. Hey, we could go ahead and cut our shit to the white meat show. Start winning some games and watch how fast that shit heal up. Watch how fast those fans start filling up the stadium. Yeah, that dump we call home, FedEx Field. Everybody's crying about wanting a new stadium, me included. I want a new damn stadium. One that I can be proud of. One that I won't mind attending. Won't mind eating, 4 or 5 hours of traffic, even though I only live 45 minutes away from the stadium. Yeah, I'll go for a stadium that's worth it, for an experience that's worth it. But guess what? Win some damn ball games. We'll fill that damn dump up so quick. It'll make your damn eyes spin. You're getting knocked out like Mike Tyson. Win some games. See how fast this shit heals. So there's definitely some healing that has to take place. But at the same time, winning cures all. Winning cures all. And I said this earlier today. And this is the thing I do. And I got to stop this shit. I got to stop because this is that fandom. And I suppress this shit, as best I can. It's not hard in certain years. Like 2019, it wasn't hard to suppress that fandom. Even though you start to get excited when as the season draws near and you get closer and closer, you start getting more and more excited. When you know you suck, it ain't no amount of fandom that's going to convince you otherwise that this is going to end up being a good season. We are so far removed from that. I can psych myself up. Getting rid of Dan, getting Eric Bieniemy, having the offseason that we had, I really, you guys know how I feel about Sam Howell. Okay. The pieces that he's surrounded by. We make the right moves defensively. If Chase Young is what I think he can be, Montez Sweat is, and this is the year. I'm expecting a Daron Payne-esque leap from Montez Sweat this year. This is a contract season for Montez Sweat. I am expecting a monumental leap for him to go out and plant his flag that I need to be paid. And whether it's you or it's somebody else, somebody's got to break me off because I just posted 13.5 sacks this past season. He does that, it'll probably be us. All that said, it feels like the stars are aligning for this first year. And somebody said something that I just said, Also, I couldn't even say words because that shit hit deep. I read a comment from one of the viewers from the show earlier, and they said something to the effect of, wouldn't the best karma for Dan Snyder, and really for us as fans, F Dan Snyder, but, wouldn't it be the best karma for us as fans in a positive way, but a negative way for Dan, negative karma for him, if we won it all, or we had wild success the very first year he's gone as owner? Think about that shit. I didn't even have words. I just said, That's one of those preach moments. When you in church and somebody giving some powerful word and you don't even say a word, you just go, That was a moment. Well, I'm thinking to myself, damn. That would be so satisfying. The first year that this bastard is gone, the football god said, all right, y'all been suffering long enough, man. Bravo. Standing ovie. I got to give it to y'all. For the ones that hung in for the full 25 years, it was 23 technically, but the full 25 years, if you're going all the way back to Jack Kent Cook not leaving the team to his son and bungling that whole situation, and then being in limbo for a couple of years while they were selling the team. For all of y'all that stuck around for that whole fiasco, all 25 years, y'all deserve this, man. Go ahead and enjoy this season right here. Look, the universe doesn't always work the way that it's supposed to. It doesn't. We all know this to be a fact. But wouldn't that be too much like right? Damn it, if we don't deserve a big season, if we don't deserve to find our franchise quarterback after years and years and years of wandering in the wilderness. We got the weapons. We got the receivers. We got the running backs. I think we can use an upgraded tight end, but they're not going to do it. But the tight end room isn't terrible. Offensive line needs work. It's a work in progress. If they can clean that up, if Eric Bieniemy is anything remotely close to what we think he can be, if he learned anything from Andy Reid, anything, and he brings that here, this could be a year, man. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Anyway, I digress. Good shit, JP. Spence Kalis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, if we still suck after the sale, who do we blame then? Well, it just depends on how we suck. The easiest blame would be Ron Rivera. Okay, he's got to go. He's the problem, right? Then you go and you see if you can't find the right coach. Because, again, talent-wise, we feel like we're starting to be on par with some of the better teams in the league from a talent perspective. We're not that far off. We're not there yet, but we're not that far off either. And you know, it's a fine line in the NFL. And generally, what separates teams is the quarterback position. Because if you've got that dude, you don't have to have as great a talent around him. He elevates the play of others around him. Patrick Mahomes takes a Juju Smith-Schuster and makes him look better than what he is. I challenge Juju Smith-Schuster to look good next year in New England. Let's see if he looks as good as he did in Kansas City or even in Pittsburgh early in his career when he had Ben Roethlisberger throwing the football. We'll see. We'll see. MVS looked good. Looked good in Green Bay because he had Aaron Rodgers look good in Kansas City. That's what Hall of Fame quarterbacks do. I'll be interested to see what happens with Sam Howell. I don't think he's one of those dudes. But as I've mentioned, I think he could ascend to one of the better young quarterbacks in the NFC. That's not hard to do. We don't have a lot of talent over on this side of the bracket. But the first person you would blame if it doesn't work is Ron. But it could get much deeper than that. We watch the games. So if we feel like, man, we lost that game because of the quarterback, then we could just point the blame and say we need a quarterback. We've done that before. You could argue the last two seasons, if we had better quarterback play, we'd have made the playoffs each of the last two seasons. So it's not hard to know where the blame resides, but the easiest person to blame it will be Ron Rivera. There are plenty of good organizations that struggle. It has nothing to do with the ownership group. That wasn't here. Clearly, the biggest problem was the owner. You lack success, but you got good ownership. You got good stuff going on at the top. That means you need to find the right people and employ them. You just don't have the right people here. If Ron goes, remember, if Ron goes, more likely than not, everybody goes with him. So you're hiring a new GM, new team president. Well, not necessarily new team president. You know, Jason Wright can stay if the new ownership group, and I don't see why they wouldn't keep him on board, honestly. You know, Jason Wright was semi a product of his environment. I thought he did a lot of good things here. I thought he whiffed on some things, but that's part of just this environment. You're going to whiff on some things because that's what this environment does. But I think Jason Wright's really smart and he gets it. And put in a better environment, which he's about to be in a better environment, I think he'll be allowed to flourish and he'll shine. But They may mean you just need better football people. Martin Mayhew needs to go. Ron Rivera needs to go. Marty Herney needs to go. And, Chris Polian needs to go. And you need to find other guys to come in here and fill those roles. So we'll see. I'm not thinking like that. I'm thinking that this shit's about to pop. Red Wings 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, a lot of people worried about new ownership moving the team out of the DMV. To that, I say, why? Go where? Why leave the capital of the U.S.? This is as good a market as you'll get. I don't understand the fans that think new ownership would come in and move the team. To your point, where are you going to go that has as big of a market share as the DMV? People would kill to have their market be as fruitful as this one. Do you know how profitable the DMV is? Like, part of the reason the NFL wanted Daniel Snyder gone is because they know that this is a gold mine that this organization and franchise is sitting on, and they're squandering it. There's so much more money that could be made here for the entire league to profit from, to benefit from. And it was being squandered. It was being wasted by Daniel Snyder and his foolishness. Where are you going to pick this thing up and go to St. Louis? Where are you going to go? San Antonio? Like, yeah, right. You're talking about the capital of the United States of America. You're talking about 3 different markets that you tap into here in the DMV: Maryland, Virginia, and DC. Like, outside of New York and California, and maybe Florida, maybe Texas, outside of those massive states, you won't find a bigger demographic that you can tap into and make it fruitful in terms of financial gain than the DMV. So there's no way that this team is being moved anywhere. No way. John Perez, my guy, JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy, JP writes, been saying it and will continue to say it. 2023 may be Ron's last year. Better make the playoffs. Now that we have new owners, there are no excuses. Well, honestly speaking, whether we had new ownership or not, this was a big year for Ron. I don't think that even really mattered. This is a big year for Ron. Ron knows it. Ron's already acknowledged it. And hell, I thought last year was a big year for Ron, honestly speaking. And what probably saved him was the fact that all of this shit is going on. Had this been a normal offseason, that decision he made to bench Taylor Heineke in favor of Carson Wentz, I remember saying this in the moment. And I think one of the titles of the video, this decision could be a make or break decision for Ron Rivera. And if this shit backfires, this could be the reason he gets fired. And at that time, we didn't know that they were going to sell the team, that Dan and Tanya Snyder were going to sell the team. There were innuendos, but we've heard shit before. So we couldn't be certain. Had Dan been back, if Dan wasn't thinking about selling, if he wasn't under scrutiny and all of the shit that was going on, if this was a normal offseason, I don't know if Ron is here. Last year was a big year. Well, this year is amplified times 10, times 20. Because now this is your 4th year. You've done everything that you said you wanted to do. You built this roster up. It's ready to compete. You think you got a quarterback. You pretty much pushed your chips to the center of the table on this Sam Howell fella. I'm right there with you. But A lot of people think you're a dope for doing that. You pretty much rolled the dice on Eric Bieniemy. Nobody else wanted to give him a chance, and most people think that's for a reason. So you're rolling the dice on him. You're rolling the dice on this young quarterback with one career NFL start. There are no expectations for Washington, except for us as a fan base. But outside of this fan base, we're the worst team in the NFC East. Nobody's checking for us. Nobody's expecting anything out of us. I like it like that. For now, at least. But eventually, and I've stated this, I want to get to a point where you see us coming, you know we coming, and we still kick your ass. Right now, we in the process of trying to sneak up on folks. And that's cool. But eventually, that sneaking up shit don't work. Like the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, last year, we saw the moves they made, but we kept leaning on the crutch of, hey, they still got Jalen Hurts. So, in essence, we don't respect you. We don't believe you. You need more people. Jalen Hurts ain't going to do it to us until he started doing it to people. This year, they ain't sneaking up on nobody. Everybody will be ready for that Eagle shit now. They may not be able to stop it, but at least they're ready for it now. We'll see what they can do. The Super Bowl hangover, that shit is real. Just in case you were keeping tabs at home. That Super Bowl hangover shit. Unless you got Patrick Mahomes, that Super Bowl hangover shit is real. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. We'll see what happens. Anyway, I digress. Ron knows there ain't no excuses. He's been through this before. Ron knows what's good. So I think that's part of the reason why Ron was like, I'm going to just roll with Sam. I know what Sam is. I got to watch Sam last year. I'm comfortable with what Sam brings to the table. This locker room believes in Sam. If I go out and get a young boy, or I go out and get a veteran quarterback that may be able to get it done, but may not be, I mean, what does that mean for me? I think he just feels like, I'm going to just roll the dice with Sam. If I'm right, I might have a dude for the next 10 years, and I might have job security for the next decade. If I'm wrong, I'm fired anyway. What difference does it make? I mean, it's not a bad roll of the dice, honestly. If you're right and Sam's that dude, that's what's going to keep you employed at the end of the day. You won't find a head coach surviving and thriving in this league without a quarterback. It just doesn't happen. Not in this league. It just ain't going to happen. You find any coach in this league that's been coaching 10 plus years in the same spot, Mike Tomlin, Bill Belichick, you run down the list, and it's not many dudes that's been in the same spot for the last decade. But anybody even approaching that landmark of a decade in the same spot, go down that list. I guarantee you there's a quarterback, a big-time quarterback, a Hall of Fame, a future Hall of Fame quarterback that's attached to that coach. Guarantee it. You're not going to find a coach hanging around, winning a whole bunch of ball games with a journeyman quarterback or 3-4 different quarterbacks rolling through their building. The one dude I can think of in the league that's kicking ass, and he ain't been around that long yet, but he's been kicking ass with Ryan Tannehill, and that's damn Mike Vrabel. But Mike's only been around about 5-6 years. But go just check the resumes. So Ron is betting that if I'm right about this Sam Howell fella, That's my meal ticket. If I'm wrong, I'm fired anyway. What difference does it make? Jacoby Brissett can't be my meal ticket. I know that for a fact. I don't think Derek Carr's my meal ticket. Carson Wentz definitely wasn't my damn meal ticket. Maybe it's Sam Howell. We'll see. Ron knows it ain't no excuses. Either he gets it done or he's going to be gone. He knows that. Video channel. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Video channel writes, when Dan sells, I'm joining the Mob Squad. Need to tie two great moments together. We'll be waiting on you with open arms, man. It's coming. We'll be here with open arms waiting on you, kid. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to both of those things happening. Big Money Sonny. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, we winning the chip off the rip, Lou. I mean, I would love it. Feels good to even be able to say that with conviction and mean it. But I mean, you know, I can't co-sign that. I mean, you can go ahead, top 5 dead or alive. You could win the chip off the rip. You do all of that. I can't co-sign any of that until I see the product that we putting out on the field. I can just tell you this much. I haven't been this excited. I've already said this before. I haven't been this excited about a quarterback since 2012. And I haven't been this excited about a season since probably 2000. If I'm being honest, I'm lying. I probably one of those Gibbs years in there. I was really stoked. You know, maybe Gibbs's first year, maybe the second year. When he first came back, I was amped. I was lit. So I can't go all the way back to 2000, but 2000 was the last time we had Super Bowl aspirations. Like we were actually a odds-on favorite. So I know I was excited after the 99 season because of how close we were that year. And then all the moves we made that offseason to get better. This feels different. This year feels different, but haven't you heard that before? I said that after week 1, after beating Jacksonville. This feels different. It wasn't different. It was the same shit, but everything's about to be different. Everything's about to change for the better. So I don't know, man. Let's see. DJ23. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, I know Forbes is small, but he can get at least a pick 6 a game. That would be fine if we can trade back. Nobody's averaging a pick 6 a game. But Forbes isn't small. He's skinny. It's a difference. He's slender. He's tall. He's angular. But he's got something that you can't teach. And he plays a physical brand of football. I wouldn't mind Emmanuel Forbes on this team. For what we like to do, I think he's actually a great fit. And I wouldn't be opposed to them doing it at 16 if they had to. I'm going to go ahead out on the record and say it right now. I would prefer him over JPJ. I want to see more Deonte Banks. He's very interesting as well. I don't think he's ready, but the upside on him is up there with the best of the best in this particular draft class, the cornerback position. So there's some dudes where I don't know if they're ready to step in. Like, we need a dude that's ready to step in and be a dog right now. We don't have time to wait. I'm not sure that Deonte Banks is ready to step in right now and contribute at a high level. He might need a year. I'm not looking to spend a first or a second round pick on a dude that might need a year. Those days are gone. When we drafted, we had a year. When we drafted, Jamin Davis, I told y'all when we drafted him, hey, he might need a year. Okay? He might need a year. But we were in a position where we could spare a year. We weren't ready to win anything of note. Ryan Fitzpatrick was our starting quarterback going into that season. We weren't ready to win a damn thing. So we could spare a year. We're not in a position to be sparing a damn thing with a first or second round pick. I need those boys to come in and immediately impact this roster. That's part of the reason why I didn't love the Fedarian Mathis pick last year, because I'm like, if you truly love Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne, how often is this young man actually going to play? I said, unless you know you're not re-signing Daron Payne, this is a dumb pick because it doesn't help you as much as it should right now. Right now. Right now. Right now. Right now. I need a corner. If you're going to draft a corner, I need a corner that's going to come in here and impact right away. And I don't know how you're going to get him on the field. Figure it out. Because if you still love Kendall Fuller, if you still feel good about Juice, you need 3 corners. I know that much. In today's NFL, your third corner is a starter. And we could talk about Buffalo nickel, this, that, and the third. You still better have a dynamic nickel corner or your ass is going to get got. So we better figure that shit out, whether Kendall Fuller slides inside or Juice slides back inside and they put some. I would prefer to leave Juice right outside where he was last year. Just leave him alone. And so maybe it's not one of these boundary dudes that we've been sniffing around that we're getting excited about. Maybe it's one of these nickel dudes. Maybe it's a DJ Turner. All along, we've been talking about all these tall, long, rangy corners. Maybe it's one of these small, diminutive dudes that we're going to kick inside. Maybe it's Hodges Tomlinson. Like, I don't know what it's going to ultimately be. Maybe it is Quan Martin out of Illinois, and he's the new nickel, and he can offer you that Buffalo nickel package that you're looking for, and be that dude, that Buffalo nickel that can play multiple positions and be that hybrid that you've been talking about. And maybe it's not one of these corners. That's why it's such an intriguing position that Washington's in, because we've been talking about boundary dudes, and Kendall Fuller's going into the last year of his deal. So I understand that you need to be not only playing checkers, you need to be playing chess as well. Play for now, but also look into the future. But come week 1, you better be able to put 3 dudes on the field at the cornerback position that can at least slow down the opposition. You can't do that, we in trouble again. Because last year, I felt like if you wanted a first down, all you had to do was throw to whomever you had in the slot. I didn't feel like we could stop them. I told you that second Giants game, watching Bobby McCain get cooked in the slot repeatedly, over and over and over and over and over and over again. Like, you want to know why the Giants felt comfortable going for it on 4th and 7? Not 4th and 3 or 2 or 1. 4th and 7. Not 4th and 7 from, the Washington 29. This was 4th and 7 from like the Washington 43. Like, you turn this over and you're giving up great field position. This wasn't like no man's. They could have punted the football. They said, nah, we're going to go for it. We don't think y'all can stop us. And they were right. We could be looking at the wrong type of corner or the wrong, position. We could be talking about corner this whole time and they looking at safeties. Or just they looking at nickels in particular. We'll see. Forbes is interesting. All right. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Chris writes, hey Lou, what's up, Chris? Hope all is well with you and the fam. Likewise. What would be your top 3 priorities with new ownership to enhance the reputation of the team, both in the short and long terms, and improve the fan experience at FedEx Field? Well, the biggest thing is winning, which ownership can't really control what happens on the field. All they can do is put people in places that they trust and believe are the best for the job at hand, and then let the chips fall where they may. But winning is what's going to create the best experience at FedEx Field. But I asked this question earlier. I'll run it back right now. What is the first thing you want new ownership to do? If you didn't answer it earlier today, I'd love for you to answer it now. What is the first thing you want new ownership to do? I said this when this same question was posed to me probably like a month ago. I said the first thing, and really the only thing that I really want ownership to do immediately, is find where the new stadium is going to be and break ground on it, because FedEx Field lease is up in 2027. And it takes, last time I checked, it takes quite a while to build a stadium. So I'd really like for them to come in here, figure out where the next stadium is going to be, whether it's in Maryland, whether it's this same FedEx Field site, and they got to build it in the parking lot right next to it, whether they get it in VA, or if somehow a miracle happens and they can get it where it belongs, which is downtown DC. But I don't see that happening. Whatever the case may be, they need to figure that out, break ground on it so we can get that ball rolling. That's what I want to see happen. But as far as enhancing the fan experience and what can they do in the short and long term, I think the long term thing is just hire good people and let them do their jobs. Don't be meddlesome. Don't be Daniel Snyder Jr. and veto months and months of work by coming down and saying, hey, we're drafting this guy. Let the football people do their job. Look, when you own a team, when you're the majority owner and you spent all the money that these guys are going to spend, ultimately, you should have some say so. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a voice. This is your damn team. But you hired guys, let those guys do their job. And we know Harris is more analytics based and driven. So I expect analytics to fuel a lot of the decisions that this organization will make. If he ultimately ends up being the majority owner, I assume that analytics will play a major role in turning this thing around. I'm not a massive analytics guy. I don't think you can make every single decision solely based off of numbers and analytics. But I do think there's a place for analytics in sports. So we'll see. So long term, just Find the right guys and let them do their job. Maybe those guys are already here. Maybe they're already here. Maybe they're not. Whatever the case may be, let them do their jobs. Short term, just come in here and reassure everyone that you're the right people for the job, that you're going to turn this thing into a winner. Maybe lessen some of the prices at FedEx Field, parking prices, concession prices, things of that nature. There's not much you can do to FedEx, man, to make it a better fan experience. You're not going to pour a ton of money. I wouldn't. If I'm buying this thing, it's a dump. It's going to remain a dump for the next 4 years. I'm focused on building a new stadium. That's what I'm pouring all my resources into. Trying to find a state, more specifically a city, that is going to support this endeavor and help us build the stadium. But there's not much you can do to FedEx Field, and you probably be better off asking a season ticket holder that goes to all of the games what you could do to enhance the fan experience. I'm not the one at the games. I'm giving away tickets so that y'all go to the games. So maybe you ask somebody that actually attends these games on a weekly basis. They'll probably be able to tell you more of some of the things that can be done at FedEx Field to enhance the game experience, the fan experience. But just win. Above all else, win. DJ23, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? Also, Forbes NFL comp is Dantzler. Do you agree? Yeah and no. I always say that that's low hanging fruit. It's hard not to. It's very tantalizing because usually schools go after similar players. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. I've talked about that when I break down drafts and I give you comps and things of that nature. I try to steer clear of the comp of the guy that used to go there because that's the easy low-hanging fruit, because schools usually recruit the same caliber of athletes, the same guys. You go and you look at the players and you're like, damn, he looks just like him, who looks just like him, who looks just like him. It's like a carbon copy. Like every Ohio State receiver looks the same. Like not every receiver, but they've got like 3 different flavors of receiver, right? 3 different sizes. You either look like the kid that went first last year to the Jets, Garrett Wilson. You either look like him, like Terry's kind of in the same mold as him. He's not as shifty as Garrett Wilson, but similar size, skill set, right? Most of their receivers look like Chris Olave. Jackson Smith and Jigba looks like him. They got this Abuka kid that's going to be next in line. Looks just like those two. That's usually what they look like, right? And then you go to other teams that pump out players into the draft and you look at the DNA profile of some of these players. They all look the same. And that's what Mississippi State corners, that's what they like, right? They like those long guys. They don't have to be the thickest, very skinny, ball hawks, attack the football. So that's an easy comp. You could easily say that he's Antonio Cromartie. Cromartie was obviously much thicker. He's a thicker corner, but he was skinny too, and he was tall and long. But Dantzler is probably the more apt comp. But we'll see. We'll see. One of Dantzler's problems, because he's a smaller dude, staying healthy. That could be a problem in the league for Emmanuel Forbes. Like, people talk about size, and you want to dismiss it, but there's a reason size matters. It's a very physically demanding sport. Will, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Will writes, looking at cornerback and offensive tackle, there's no other position at 16. I mean, there's other positions that they could go at 16. The question is, will they? If they're strictly drafting based off of need, those are, and I wouldn't say offensive tackle, I would just say offensive line. They're not going to draft a center at 16, but they could draft a guard at 16. They could fall in love with Osiris Torrance and take him at 16. So I wouldn't just say tackle. I would just throw a more broad position and just say O-line at 16. But I do think those are the two leaders in the clubhouse, which is why you got a lot of mock drafts either having Washington select an offensive lineman or a corner at 16. Those are the safe picks and the safe bets. But if they really wanted to be perceptive and forward thinking, I can't stress this enough, but if you know you're not going to be able to bring back one of your edge rushers, now would be the time. If you fall in love with one of these edge rushers at 16, would be the time to pull the trigger on one of these dudes. Guess what? If one of these dudes, if both of those dudes turns out to be nasty and the young fella turns out to be nasty, guess what? You can trade somebody. You can recoup your first round pick back. Ultimately, I think it's offensive line or corner in the first round. But we'll see. Again, that's why this draft for Washington holds so much intrigue, because we think we know what they're going to do, but we can't be certain. And we don't know what the board is going to ultimately, it's line season. And so you're getting the Texans don't know if they really love a quarterback at 2. If Bryce Young is gone, they don't know. They don't love CJ Stroud. They could take Will Anderson. Kiss my ass. Get out of here with that bullshit, man. So you just going to roll with Davis Mills again, huh? You just roll Case Keenum out there, man. Get out of my face. Yeah, right. You taking a quarterback, man. You taking a quarterback at 2. Will Kavanaugh, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, happy Thanksgiving, Lou. LOL. I watched Commander's Log and loved listening to MJD speak about EB. I loved everything about all of that. And that's not the first time we've heard Maurice Jones-Drew speak about Eric Bieniemy. We've heard other people speak on behalf of Eric Bieniemy. I love the interaction between Wiley and EB. They were sitting there eating, and he was saying, hey, man, I appreciate you, essentially helping me get here. And Bieniemy's like, yeah, they asked about you. Like, trying to play it coy, like, yeah, they asked about you. Obviously, he said good things about him, or they wouldn't have went out and gotten him in free agency. And I really like Andrew Wiley, though. I told you I listened to him speak when he was in Kansas City, and he's definitely going to fit in well with this locker room. And, one of the things that resonated with me, and I got to say this, because in my fandom right now, I'm in heaven. Like, it's never been a better time to be a fan of every single one of the teams that I'm a fan of, outside of probably Duke basketball. And we're not in a bad place. It's just not as good as when Coach K was there. But I have nothing but the utmost confidence in what we're doing as a program, and to see all of the success that our coach had in his first season. Sky's the limit for him. Don't necessarily love some of the recruiting that they're doing, but we'll see what happens. But I think Notre Dame is heading in a great direction. I actually think we got a quarterback this year. We can make some noise in college football this year. Why the hell not? My Grizzlies are young and we're not going away, and we're going to be good for a long time, for at least the next 5 to 7 years. We're going to be title contenders. It's exciting. My Braves are young. They just won a World Series. We're not going away. We'll be around for the next 5 to 7 years. And you know what? The Washington Commanders are young. Now, we don't have that quarterback yet. I'm hoping that we do. I think that we do. Because if we do have the quarterback, we're going to be around for the next 3 to 5, maybe 7 years and competing at a high level. When I watch this young nucleus and I listen to Terry speak, and I listen to Deron, I listen to Jonathan Allen, and you look at the talent and you listen to Terry say, you know what? This was the team last year that, for me, was the best nucleus of players that I've ever been around in my pro career. This was the first time in the locker room where I felt like we're building something. Like, that's how those guys feel now. Like, they know we're on to something. It was funny because a lot of people thought Deron was going to want to leave because we stink. And Deron's like, bro, we not that far away. And nobody's going to just come out and say it. But we all know what they're saying. We a quarterback away from doing some damage. Might not be a quarterback away from winning the Super Bowl, but we a quarterback away from making the playoffs, being a player when we get in the playoffs. And as we know, the NFC, I can't stress this enough. I've said it a million times. I sound like a broken record, but I keep saying it over and over again because it's true. Who's stopping you in the NFC? It might be the hardest thing, maybe just getting out of the division. Between Philadelphia, Dallas, and the Giants, that might be the hardest part about playing in the NFC right now. Yep, San Francisco is really good. Outside of them, who scares you? The entire South sucks right now and is pretty much rebuilding in unison with one another. New Orleans is like, hey, don't lump us in with them. We went and got Derek Carr. Everybody's saying, so? You got Derek Carr, so? The whole NFC North is turned upside down. Green Bay could stink. Jordan Love could be nice, and they could pick right up where they left off. We don't know. Chicago could be good, or Chicago could just be Chicago. Detroit, they look like they're on the up and up. We'll see if they can sustain it. And then Minnesota's just kind of hanging around. They were really good last year, but did you really think the Vikings were good? We wanted to play the Vikings in the first round because we thought we could beat them. The Giants wanted to play the Vikings. Everybody was like, yo, let me get that 2 seed. What do you have to be to play the 2 seed? 7? Let me get that 7 seed. Sign me up for that. Because I know I can go to Minnesota and win. Nobody was afraid of the Vikings. Arizona's going to be one of the worst teams in football. We don't know what to expect from the Rams. They just traded Jalen Ramsey. Is Matthew Stafford going to be able to make it through a full 17-game season? If he can't, they suck. And the Seahawks, it was a nice story last year. Let me see if Geno Smith can do it again. To listen to Terry say, hey, man, you're not going to have no problems with effort with this team. And I've said that since Ron got here. How many times we've been down 20 points? We talked about this. Actually, it's a terrible statistic. If you're Ron Rivera, this shit is not flattering. How many times we've been down 20 points or more in the first half of a game? Shit's crazy. I think the number we said was 9 times, something like that. What? He's only been here 3 years. We've been down 9 times, 20 points or more in the first half. Are you kidding me? How many times did those games end in pure ass whoopings? Not many, maybe twice. Even that Eagles game last year where they were up 24-0 at half. I know we watched that game. I get it. But go back and watch that game. See how many opportunities we had. We could have made that a game if we could have gotten out of our own way, but we just sucked so bad we couldn't get out of our own way. Like, that didn't have to be. Like, the Eagles didn't score a single point in any other quarter but the second quarter. They never stopped fighting in that game or any game that we've been down big in. Going back to Ron's first year, where we made it a habit of dropping down 20 points before actually starting to play ball. Effort isn't going to be a problem. It's just, can you get the most out of the players that we have? Because we have talent here now. Can we get the most out of what we have? Can you get the most out of Antonio Gibson? We haven't even scratched the surface with that young fella. Question is, what are you doing with him? We should have been getting more out of him. We haven't. That's the sad truth of the matter, is we haven't gotten what we should have gotten out of Antonio Gibson. We knew what we were getting out of De'Ami Brown when we drafted him. So why aren't you getting that out of De'Ami Brown? Because we haven't done a good enough job of getting the most out of what players do well. You know what the tight ends are. You know what Logan Thomas is. Well, why aren't we using him in the red zone? Why isn't he a much bigger threat on 3rd and 7? Don't ask me. I don't know. Stop asking. I don't know why. We got a lot of stuff that we're not utilizing properly. We're hoping that changes this year and into the future. So I liked a lot of what I heard. But I said all of that to say this. The Commanders are the missing piece to my fandom. And they're right there with the Grizzlies and the Braves. They're young, just like those teams. They could be good, just like those teams. I could be sitting here the next 4 or 5 years saying, hey, we got a window. Every year the Braves show up for spring training, I'm saying, hey, we could win the chip this year. Every year the Grizzlies show up for preseason basketball, for training camp. I say, hey, fellas, y'all think y'all can win the chip this year? We taking steps. I'm like, this year, I need to get to the Western Conference Finals. Now, that's taking a blow with the 2 injuries to our bigs. But it's still not out of the realm of possibility that we can still get to the Western Conference Finals. I'm sitting here with Washington and I'm saying, hey, y'all just as young, maybe not as talented as those 2 teams are, but you just as young, you got some talent, you just as hungry as those teams are. Put the pieces of the puzzle together. Gotta get the quarterback, though. That's the difference between the Braves. They got a star. They got a Ronald Acuna Jr. The Grizzlies, they got a star. They got a Ja Morant. We thought we had one in Chase Young, but he don't play the most important position. That's quarterback. We need one of those boys. And if we got that, if Sam Howell is that, here we come. Joseph's Journey. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, is it legal to use the defensive tackle as a running back? Payne said it to EB. Yeah. Payne said, hey, man, don't check me out. Don't forget about me. Payne made it abundantly clear. Hey, I can block too. Like, EB was like, can you carry? You know, can you hold on to the rock? Can you catch? You know, Payne was like, I can do all of that, man. But I can block too. Like, Don't be afraid to put me in there. We do actually have a fullback. People keep asking because the Chiefs, they do use a fullback. And so a lot of people were saying, hey, would we draft a fullback? I'm like, we got one on the roster already. They got Alex Armour still on the roster. I don't think that's something that they're going to explore. If they want to keep a fullback, they got to do. But even if they don't keep him on the active roster, they've been using the tight ends as H-backs. But Payne is like, yo, if you need, I can block, man. That was funny. That was a funny exchange there. Let's see. Red Boy, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Red Boy writes, how do you feel about Kincaid at 16? They're not taking a tight end at 16. I've said this a million times. It's the one position that even GM Martin Mayhew wasn't touching. Like, he went through the list of skill positions on the offensive side of the football, and he got excited about tight end. Ron, when he mentions positions that we need, he doesn't mention tight end. They again, it's Lion season. They could be playing coy and just like trying to misdirect everybody so that they could have dibs on the first tight end. Because I don't think we'll see a tight end taken by the time we get on the board at 16. I mean, theoretically, there's some teams like New England at 14. They're always looking. They just traded a tight end. They're always looking for a tight end. Are the Patriots? They love the tight end position. So I can see a team like the Patriots taking a tight end at 14, but I can't see too many other teams spending a pick ahead of us at tight end. Maybe Green Bay. They just lost Robert Tonyan at tight end in free agency. Maybe the Packers are interested. I think that's another logical destination. As a matter of fact, I'd be shocked if the Packers didn't take a tight end at 15. That's actually probably where the first tight end, if New England doesn't take one, that one of those two teams would be the first tight end off the board. I don't see Washington taking a tight end at all. And what is who I really like? Because I'm not looking, if they're going to draft a tight end, it's not going to be until day 3. Like, they're not going to spend resources on a guy that they feel like they have more than enough stuff at. They're not going to do it at tight end. But I love the Alabama tight end. And in such a deep draft class, he's off the beaten path. And nobody's even checking for him. I mean, you probably could get him in the 6th, 7th round. And he was, specifically this past year, he was Bryce Young's go-to wide receiver because none of the receivers were ready to truly step up and be the guy. So he trusted Cameron Latu, the tight end at Alabama, more so than he probably did any of those receivers in any big spot. Going all the way back to the 2022 national championship game against Georgia, when all the injuries hit. Remember, there was no John Mechie in that game. He had already gotten hurt in the SEC championship. They lose Jamison Williams in that national championship game. He was about to cook their ass. He had already cooked them in the SEC championship. I think he already had 3 or 4 catches for 70 some odd yards when he got hurt. He was about to cook their ass again. And he gets hurt. Now they got nobody. And who did he start throwing the football to? Latu. It was the same thing in 2022. Didn't trust the receivers. I could trust Cameron Latu, though. I like him a lot. I'd love to add a dude like that to the mix. But again, I don't think they're going to do anything. So Dalton Kincaid, I'd love him. He's one of the true separators in this draft at the tight end position. He's breaking dudes off and getting open. I know a lot of y'all just saw that he was cleared by his doctor because he had some issues with his back. That's already been, repaired, and he's healed, and he's, done all of the things that he needed to do. And the doctor pretty much cleared him to all 32 teams. If you're interested, he's good to go. So Dalton Kincaid is a really good tight end, and he'll be one of the first ones off the board in this year's draft. I would love him just like I would love any other tight end in this draft early on. They're all really good, and they would all go straight to the top of our tight end depth chart. Whether it's Kincaid, Mayer, Washington, it doesn't matter who it is. Hell, even Luke Musgrave, probably go straight to the top of our damn tight end depth chart. But we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. John Livingston, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, JL Smooth, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes, hey, Lou, try not to do this often, but sent you a DM on Twitter. I'm about to say, I don't even have my mobile device on me, but I actually do. So let's go to Twitter, see if there is something there. So here's what my guy JL Smooth has to say. Hey, Lou, tough day, man. Hard to think about football. My dad was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. Damn. My condolences, man. So to relate, now my dad had gotten diagnosed with prostate cancer, but it wasn't stage 4. And luckily they found his early, so they were able to remove it. But I remember that day like it was yesterday, and it was a sinking feeling, right? That you just get when you get that news. And so, man, my heart goes out to you and your family, man. Stay strong. Your dad's gonna need you. You got to be there for him. That has spread to his lymph nodes and his bone. He's seeking a second opinion from Roswell Cancer Center here in Buffalo, but I'm going through it today. I know you are. Prayers and thoughts and prayers go out to your family. Mob, this is why we've assembled this family for days like today. Y'all show my guy JL Smooth some love, man. Shower him with support and let him know we thinking about him. We praying for him and his family and his dad. One day you're fine, and the next you find out you have stage 4 cancer. This is why my wife is always on me about going to the doctor, and I challenge anybody that's out there. You know, these are the types of times where he's speaking his truth right now, but he may also be saving a life. Go to the doctor, man. I know that's not the sexy thing. That's not the thing that we like to do. Ignorance is bliss until some shit like this happens. Go get checked. I'm preaching to myself right now. I told my wife, I said, you must stay on me this summer. I must find a PCP. All right. A primary care physician. I must do that this summer because I'm getting older. I need to start getting regular checkups and I need to make sure that I'm okay. So, he might be talking to one of y'all right now. He's talking about his situation, but he might be talking to one of y'all. So I'm talking through him to y'all. Do yourself a favor. Make sure you go into the doctor on a routine basis to give yourself a chance to find something like this sooner than later. He says, cancer is not a death sentence anymore, especially prostate cancer, but just asking for prayers for my dad from the mob. I was born on his birthday. My dad is Superman to me. Hard to even think right now. Hope all is well with you and yours, Lou. God bless. So y'all heard my man JL Smooth, man. He going through it right now. So y'all, like I said, shower that man with praise and prayers. And I'm gonna let you know we thinking about you and your dad, man. And to your point, the fight is not over. All right. Now the real fight begins. You found out the news, you grieve, you mourn, and then now you got to fight. And like you said, prostate cancer is one of the ones that's very treatable. But y'all got to be aggressive because stage 4 is aggressive. So y'all got to be aggressive. So we thinking about you, man, you and your dad and your family. And keep us updated, man. Keep us abreast of what's going on. But I know you're going to need your privacy and you're going to be going through a lot. But just know we here for you, man. Just know we here for you. Appreciate you, JL Smooth, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. Prayer is a powerful thing, y'all. Prayer is a powerful thing. Metaphor, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Writes, the Berlin Wall is falling. Parade gonna span from Berlin, Germany to Berlin, New Jersey. 3-finger piece W to inmate Snyder. Lou, let's march on Ashburn. That's what this feels like. It feels like it did in the early 90s when the Berlin Wall came down. That's late 80s, early 90s. I want to feel like it spilled into the early 90s before it finally came down. That's what it feels like. It feels like a long battle. Like the Cold War was. And it's finally coming to an end. And again, much like people who probably lived on one side or the other of the Berlin Wall that divided with East and West Germany, who probably thought that wall would never come down. That's kind of how we feel. Like, we didn't really know if this day was ever going to come. When it finally gets here, we're vastly approaching. I watched something. Shout out to my girl, Miss Perry, always holding us down, always holding the kid down, always being the manager of this channel per se. She sent me a DM to a video. I want to say it was Craig Hoffman, who was talking about the sale of the team with a guy that works for Sportico. And as we all know, they were the ones really releasing all the information today. Sportico was all over it. And I retweeted some of the Sportico tweets that were coming out that were, you know, kind of chronicling everything as it happened today. And that guy said that this thing's going to move pretty rapidly at this point, being that Bezos really isn't involved anymore. And Fertitta, you know, made his bid and he's out of the mix. Nobody else is coming. There isn't another offer. You know, I don't think the Canadian dude Steve A is really involved anymore. So this is pretty much it. And now the lawyers are going to get involved to cross every T, dot every I. And he said this thing could be done by next week. You know, here I am telling you the draft is in 2 weeks. NFL is not going to allow this thing to happen. Now, again, it's still going to have to be ratified by the other owners and, you know, for it to be official and all that stuff. And that may not happen until May. But once this thing is signed off, the owners are going to vote to, you know, get Snyder the hell out of here. So we're not concerned about that. So once this thing, you know, all the lawyers get involved, everything checks out, and this thing's done, and this could happen next week. Are you kidding me? What? There may be a march at Ashburn. I don't know. Colton Wheeler, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Colton Wheeler, writes, I think Eric Flowers is still a free agent, correct? I'm not sure. He could be. Nobody picked him up last year, but I don't know if somebody, you know, gave him a phone call this offseason, but I'm pretty sure he's still a free agent. I can't say that with 100% certainty, but I feel confident that he's still a free agent. I'd be okay with grabbing him and going cornerback, linebacker in rounds 1 and 2. Thoughts? April 13th, 2023, Commander's Christmas. I bought a cigar to celebrate the holiday. Commander's Christmas. That has a nice ring to it. So he's not the answer to our issues at guard. He's the equivalent of Charles Leno Jr. He's solid. He's not a world beater. He would have been better than anything we were putting on the field last year. but I think we can put something on the field better than him this year. Whether that's Chris Paul getting an opportunity, whether it's Sam Cosmi, he's got to stay healthy. Whether it's Nick Gates, I think he's more of a center, but he can play guard. Or you draft a guard, and they're going to draft a guard or a center or both in this year's draft. I think you can do better than Eric Flowers. I can't speak to why nobody gave him a phone call last year. That's still somewhat baffling. But first of all, they're not going to go back down that road. They're stubborn. They didn't do it with Landon Collins when Landon was pretty much begging, and we could have used Landon at that time, and they still wouldn't bring him back. And we were hurting last year on the offensive line, and they could have easily picked up the phone and called Eric Flowers, and they just didn't. They're not going to bring him back. So, Commander's Christmas. I don't know if that's the right date. I know today's the date. I don't know if that's the right date or not. I think it's going to be next week, or maybe it's in May when it officially happens. But I like that, Commander's Christmas. That's got a ring to it. It's a really good ring to it. Thank you for the super chat, Colton Wheeler. Red Wing 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy, Red Wing 01 writes, how about Casimir Allen in the 6th or 7th to replace J.D. McKissic? Very similar build and play style, can return kicks, but hasn't done punts. It could be a player in that kind of mold. I don't know if they're so much concerned about the running back being able to return kicks. I mean, that's an added bonus and plus. If you can add something to the return game or special teams wise, because that third running back is going to have to play special teams anyway. So if you add special teams value, that's a plus. But I'm not sure if that's what they're looking for out of that particular position. But that kind of fits what they're going to be looking for, someone in that range. I've already said high end, it's the Illinois running back, Brown. Low end, they do nothing at the position at all and go with the guy, Ronnie Brown or someone like that as an undrafted player out of Shepherd. We're all over the map as far as running back is concerned. I'm convinced they're going to do something. I'm not quite sure of where they do something, though, because I think the conversation starts with that compensatory pick in the 3rd round. I don't think they ultimately pull the trigger on a running back in the 3rd round. I will go as far as to say I don't anticipate them spending a day 1 or 2 pick on any skill position players on the offensive side of the football. I think anything that is done in that realm will be done in day number 3. So whether that's a receiver to come in here and challenge Dax Milne and also look to help with the punt and kickoff return duties, or if it's maybe they're looking for a big body receiver to come in here and replace Cam Sims because they're not sold on, Marcus Kemp. More likely than not, they're cool with Marcus Kemp and they're not looking to do that, but you never know. Or it's a running back, and I truly think they're going to do something at running back. I'll go out on a limb and say that they will not draft a skill position player on the offensive side of the football until day number 3, meaning no 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round picks will be spent on any of those positions: tight end, running back, quarterback, receiver. None of them. They'll spend on offensive line. They'll spend on corner, linebacker potentially, a hybrid safety linebacker, nickel guy, something like that. I don't think they'll spend on any skill position players on the offensive side of football until day 3. So I don't know. We'll see. But I think those are the types of players that they're sniffing around. Lorenzo Simpson, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, ever thought about doing a mock draft show with Rio, Ed, and Rick, just like McShay and Kuiper? I don't even know how their mock draft works. I've never thought about doing a mock draft with anybody else other than myself. But that could be pretty interesting stuff. I'd have to see how that would work because I've seen people do dual mock drafts before, and I don't like it. Like, you take the first pick and then the other person takes the second pick. That's stupid to me. But if you have your own mock draft and I have my own mock draft and I do my first pick and then you do your first pick, that's pretty dope. That's pretty cool. That could work. But I'm not a big fan of you got 5 dudes, and you rotate. All right, you got the first pick, you got the second pick, you got the third pick, you got the fourth pick, you got the fifth pick, then you have the sixth pick, you have the seventh pick. Like, that shit's whack to me. So I'm pretty sure there could be a way that you could do it where it would be dope. Maybe that's something I look into in the future. That's not a bad idea, actually. Thank you for that super chat, Lorenzo Simpson. I was like, who the hell is Rick? You meant Rico. I was like, Rick? I just was gonna let it ride. I wasn't even gonna try to correct you. I wasn't gonna try to figure it out. RVA Monarch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, I really can't wait for Josh Harris, man. Looking at his resume, he's turned teams from the bottom to the top contenders in their respective sports, particularly what he's done with the New Jersey Devils. It's funny because I've had Eagles fans hitting me up talking trash like, hey, see, guess y'all needed a dude from, Philly to help y'all turn things around. And I'm like, get out of here. But just looking at his resume, to your point, he's been a part of winning organizations. So is Magic. There's something to be said about that, even though Magic usually isn't spearheading anything. But every group that he seems to be a part of, they seem to win. So I'm all about that. So I like it. I like it a lot. So yeah, I'm excited about it too. I am as well. But above all else, I'm just excited to get Snyder the hell out of here. RVA Monarch, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Greatly appreciate you, RVA Monarch, who writes, I realize building hockey teams and basketball teams are not the same as football, but if we were just looking at what he's done with the franchises he owns, he gets the right people in positions that they need to be in. Remember, I talked about, this, I think it was either this week or last week, but I talked about an interview that I saw with Josh Harris. And this is before he had put the bid in, but he was definitely interested. Everyone knew he was interested in owning an NFL team. He was one of the final bidders for the Denver Broncos. And so he was talking about what makes a really good owner. And he was talking about some of the successes that he's had in other leagues. And he said the common thread is people. And he said the biggest thing that I've learned in what I've done, and whether this is in business or it's in the sports world, they're very similar in that it always comes back to the same thing, and it comes down to people. And I firmly believe that. At the end of the day, it comes back to people. and relationships that you build and people that you put in place to do their job, can you find competent people to do what it is you brought them there to do? And he said, I'm all about cultivating an environment that allows people to foster relationships with everyone so that the environment is one that people feel like they can thrive and flourish in, but also bringing in the right people that I feel like understand exactly what needs to be done, and I feel like they can do it at a very high level. And that's ultimately all you really want from an owner in any walk of life. Hell, just a manager, right? You just want your manager to not be an asshole, somebody that you can relate to, someone you can talk to, you know, because at the end of the day, that's what it always comes back down just to people. And Eric Bieniemy says the same thing. The reason I can yell at players is because I establish a relationship with them first. I don't just come in and start screaming at people that I don't know. That's an easy way to piss people off and to not be able to get through to somebody. Just come in and start yelling at them. You know, earlier on, we had a super chat from Will Kavanaugh. And Will said, I enjoyed the conversation that MJD had about Eric Bieniemy. And one of the first things that Eric Bieniemy or Maurice Jones-Drew established was that Eric Bieniemy wrote me letters when he was at the University of Colorado recruiting me. And in with the words that he would use, the ones that he wanted to put emphasis on, he would underline. And he would write me these letters 2-3 times a week, talking about how he could maximize who I was as a football player. And he said the first thing I realized when he did that was attention to detail, which we've heard over and over again about Eric Bieniemy, details. And then he's like, from that point on, we established a relationship, and I signed on to be a running back at the University of Colorado. Eric Bieniemy ends up at UCLA. He's no longer at the University of Colorado. He leaves before I get there. And so I got out of my letter of intent and I followed him to UCLA. And that's how MJD ended up at UCLA. And from everyone that you listen to talk about Eric Bieniemy, and Bieniemy tells these stories all the time. I established relationships with these dudes. Without that, I got nothing. Him talking to Terry, him talking to Jahan, him talking to all these dudes, Sam, him telling Sam how, you know, I know this guy, Natron Means. He's like, you know Natron? That's his link. That's his way in. Natron Means went to the University of North Carolina. One thing about these alums, they don't go away. If you played a major role at your university while you were there, you end up making it to the league, you always come back. So the other young boys that's coming up in the game, they know who you are because they always see you around the facility. They always see you at the games. You're on the sidelines. They know you. You're a part of the program. Once you go to a school, you graduate from there, you make it, you always come back. Every time we see Alabama playing in a big game, what do you see on the sidelines? You see Ohio State in a big game. What do you see on the sidelines? Every dude that made it to the league is on the sidelines for a big game. Chase Young, Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, Marshawn Lattimore. They all go back. You'll catch the Bozers at a game. You don't have a game next week? You got an off week? They at the game on Saturday night. And you go around college football and you see that. You had a big game, you're gonna have players. And so he's like, hey, you know Natron means? And Sam is like, you know Natron? He's like, yeah, that was my teammate. I remember Chris Berman used to say, Natron means business. That was his nickname for him. They played on those early 90s Chargers teams together. So that's his way of establishing a relationship with Sam Howell. That's his end right there. They have a common bond there. They know the same dude. That's how you do. That's how you do in life. That's how you establish relationships with people. So Josh Harris, to bring it full circle, he's a people person. Those are the people that make the best owners, the best leaders. Me and my wife talk about this all the time because she works in the school system. And at some point, I mean, if she really wanted to, I think she could be a high-level administrator, like a principal, but she doesn't want to do that. I think the highest she would like to go is an AP. Whatever the case may be, she said, you never really realize how far a compliment or just bringing donuts to work one morning to show appreciation to the staff, how far that goes. And I said, oh, I know. I see it all the time. In my former life, when I was a vendor, it didn't take much to get people excited about work. It didn't take much to make someone feel valued. But so often, managers and people in positions of power don't even take that little step, that little initiative to learn somebody's name, to compliment somebody on the work that they're doing, to bring donuts or coffee one morning and say, hey, man, I really appreciate y'all. I brought y'all breakfast. It's just a little thing sometimes. I think Josh Harris understands that. I don't know him, but just listening to him talk. So I, too, am excited about him as well. Let's see. CGM 87. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. DC or CGM 87 writes, new owners should fire Jason, Wrong, and Marty's, bring back classic white skins, Washington football team jersey, and rid of the awful Tanya designs. Good riddance, douchey Dan. So, you want Jason Wright gone? Okay, I got no problems with that if that's how you feel. Get rid of the Martys, Marty Herney, Martin Mayhew. Bring back classic white skins Washington football team jersey. I don't see anything wrong with that other than I don't see them bringing it back. But it was crazy. I was watching a game the other day, and I was like, those were clean. Like they really didn't have to do much to the uniform. But, you know, when you have a new name, all of that stuff, when you rebrand, that's what comes with that package is new uniforms. But I think most of us as fans would have been totally fine if they would have just left the uniforms alone, and where it said football, you know, Washington on the front, where it used to say Redskins and they changed it to Washington. They could have just left that if they wanted to, or it could have just said Commanders, right? Like they really didn't have to change the uniforms that much. They really didn't. They could have made slight tweaks to it. And we've seen people with some dope mock-ups of the old uniforms, the way they were when we were the Redskins, with slight tweaks, and they look dope. But you know, again, when you get a new name, it's like almost like having an expansion team. And Nike probably got all excited about this because normally Nike, it doesn't have free reins to do whatever the hell they want to do. So, you know, if you're designing a uniform, you still have to stay within certain guidelines. Teams aren't going to let you just create a brand new uniform from scratch. Certain things that they want, certain things you have to do. So Nike probably got excited, like, oh shit, we get to design a new uniform. They weren't going to just leave the uniforms the way they were. But and there's some things you said, awful Tanya designs, I guess they have around FedEx Field. Maybe she wanted to be like Jerry Jones's wife. What is it? June Jones, I think it is, whatever her name is. She's got all those designs at Jerry's World. Again, I really don't care about that. In the new stadium, that stuff makes a difference. But at FedEx, again, it's a dump. So at this point, you'd be spraying, potpourri over funk. You much rather just get a courtesy flush than, just letting it sit there and then trying to spray some Glade over it. It still stinks. So at this point, I'm like, just get a new stadium. Let's see. John Perez, my guy, JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes a couple of things. Sounds like we're going O-line or cornerback at 16, and ain't nobody giving my Lakers a chance against Memphis. LeBron ain't trying to hear that ish. I don't agree with that. I think a lot of people are giving the Lakers a chance, more than you think. I think you're trying to play that us against the world mentality. A lot of people are picking the Lakers, but understand you're a 7 seed. You're not a 2 seed here. You should be the underdog. You're not the better team. We won over 50 games this year. You didn't. So whatever you feel like, you guys are being disrespected, underdogs, what you're supposed to be. You didn't earn the right to be in a position of power here. We did. Doesn't mean a damn thing. We still got to go out and win. But, we'll see what happens. I think 16 is O-line or a cornerback. That's what it sounds like. Doesn't have to end that way, but that's what it sounds like. I agree. Jason Fios, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, what's up, Lou? What's up, Jason? The witch is dead. How about doubling down and going Brian Branch in the first and an outside corner later to possibly replace Fuller? Middle linebacker, O-line, punt returner, tight end to get in this draft. What order? Brian Branch is definitely in play. I literally just finished watching him some more today. And he's good. There are aspects of his game that I really like. I think if he's there at 47, I wouldn't mind him. But I think some better value would just be taking Quan Martin at, 97 if he's available, which I think he will be in the draft. I think that's the better value than now. If Branch is there at 47, that's tremendous value. I don't think he will be there at 47, but he could be there at 47. There are a lot of moving parts there, and I wouldn't have a problem with Branch at 47. I think I wouldn't be thrilled with him at 16. I think that's early for him. But we do this every year, and I say this every year, primarily after the draft, because once you select a player, we can talk all we want about value and this, that, and the third. But 3 years from now, or we don't look back at the draft and said, oh my God, you took this guy at 16. Is he good or not? If he's really good, it was a good pick at 16. We were shitting on it 3 years ago when it happened. Oh, that's terrible value. If he's good now, you're like, man, that was a damn good pick. If he's not good, then obviously it's easy to second guess the pick. At the end of the day, you get your guy when you feel the need to get your guy. That's my favorite thing to say about the draft. Let everybody else, you, me, and all the, talking heads, let us do all the bitching and complaining and, comparing this and that. Oh, they got tremendous value here. That's great. Did you feel a need? Did you get a good football player? That's what it ultimately boils down to. But we love to do the value thing because it makes us feel better if we feel like we got great value. You want to know the difference between taking Sam Howell in the second versus the fifth? We got great value. You know what the biggest difference is? If we took him in the second round, people would be looking at Sam Howell and saying, hey, man, that Sam Howell kid, he's pretty good. You took him in the second round, right? Hey, let's see what he got. Versus, oh, he took him in the fifth round. He's ass. He's a fifth round pick. What you think you're going to do with a fifth round pick? That's the difference. We make so much about where a guy's taken, and they have to wear that stigma if it's lower than we thought. And if it's higher than we thought, now you've got expectations put on your head that you may not be able to live up to. It's amazing what a draft status can do for you. The difference between a second round pick and a fifth rounder is how many reps you getting in practice to show if you belong on the roster. You in the second round, you making the football team. You're not getting cut. No way in hell you getting cut. Your first 2 years, whether you stink or not, you're going to be on a roster. Fifth round pick, you can get cut right now. Right now. Right now. Right now. Right now. You can get cut right now. Just because you went 3 rounds later than a dude that might be ass. So I said all of that to say, don't so much as focus in on where you take it and what's this value and that. Did we get a punt returner in the draft? Did we get an offensive lineman or two? Did we get a linebacker? Did we get a corner? Did we get a hybrid, a safety, linebacker, nickel, whatever? Did we get a defensive end? Did we get a running back? Like, that's what is important. Did we knock down a need? Whether we got tremendous value or not, can the dude play or not? Can he fit in our scheme and our system? That's what's really important. Look, we're going to talk about value and where you should or shouldn't get. If we take Brian Branch at 16 and we sit here, oh my God, that's terrible value. I would have been happy with him at 40. If he turns out to be a stud 2 years from now, we're not going to be talking about we took him at 16 and we reached for him. Just like we won't talking about Brandon Sheriff being the 5th overall pick as a guard. Nobody was talking about that 2-3 years after we took him and he was a perennial Pro Bowl player and ultimately a all-pro. Nobody was talking about, oh, we reached, thought he was a tackle, ended up getting a guard. Nah, he's a damn good football player. So as far as Branch in the first, I could see them taking Branch. I don't see them getting them in the first, but anything can happen. Everything's on the table for Washington from a cornerback / safety, nickel, offensive lineman, guard, tackle perspective. They're not taking the center in the first round, I don't think. And I don't think they're taking a nickel in the first round either. I think they'll wait on nickel till second or third round. That's my belief. But we'll see. Of all those positions you named, I think they try to get a guy in the draft for all of them except for tight end. I'd be excited if they got anybody at tight end because this is a deep tight end draft class. I don't think they're going to add anybody. Will Kavanaugh, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. My guy, Will Kavanaugh writes, everything Magic has touched has become champs. Fingers crossed. That's like I said, he's a winner. You say what you want about, his involvement in those organizations winning. He might have just been, someone that invested and really didn't have much to do with the actual success, but it is what it is. I just know wherever Magic goes, winning follows. So sign me up. All right. Let's see. Big Money Sonny, and I appreciate everybody in the MOBB, non-mob members, but especially the mob. I really appreciate y'all showering, JL Smooth with love, man. He definitely needs it. And again, prayer, it helps. The power of prayer is more than you can imagine. So if y'all got it in y'all to send one up for my man, please do for him and his family. Big Money Sonny, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, my guy. Big Money Sonny writes, I feel like that guy on the Chappelle show that got liberated and won a truck full of Newports. Let's go, Lou. LB gonna get smoked twice a year. I don't know about that, but I do know that I feel like once this thing becomes official, as a fan base, we're gonna be reinvigorated. And I already told them being the rest of the super friends, I'm gonna be talking my shit. I already talk shit anyway. That's just what I do. But it's gonna be amplified now that we don't have that dark cloud hanging over. I said the biggest thing that could happen to this team this offseason was getting rid of Daniel Snyder. And it's coming to fruition. And now I feel like Whitehead and company, man. Ain't no stopping us now. We on the move. We about to be moving, grooving. It ain't no stopping us now, man. I don't know if we sweeping anybody in the division or not, but anybody in the division can get work. We did it to Dallas last year. We did it to Philly last year. We got to solve this Daniel Jones Rubik's Cube. I don't know what the hell's going on with that shit, but we got to start winning in the division. I just know if you're looking to make a power move in the division, you got to start winning games in your division. This winning 2 games in the division shit ain't going to cut it. You can't win 2 games in your own division and expect teams outside your division to respect you. You can't expect to go to the playoffs, but you 2-3-1 in your own division, or you 1-5 in your division, or you 2-4. That's the shit we like to do. 2-4, right? We like to win 2 games in the division. That shit's got to stop. At a bare minimum, you should be splitting with everybody in the division. And on good years, you sweeping somebody and you split with the other 2. You 4-2 in the division. That's how it should be. We got to get our shit together. We can't be a team that somebody in the division expects to sweep. Because usually Dallas beats us twice. We got them once last year. I don't really worry about the Eagles. I tell y'all that all the time. I don't expect the Eagles to sweep us. I don't expect to sweep them either, though. That's the team you're supposed to split with. And then we got to figure this Giant shit out, because they either we sweep them or they sweep us. I'm cool with one of those scenarios playing out, not the other. So we got to figure that shit out too. But we're going to see what happens. Chappelle Show. Woo-hoo-hoo! Hoo-hoo! Joe, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Joe writes, I might sound paranoid, but how do we know Josh Harris won't sabotage us to help the Eagles? He's from Philly. Is there a conflict of interest? I don't think he's from Philadelphia. I think I read somewhere that he's from the DMV area, actually. If I'm not mistaken, I think he and Mitchell Rails are both from the DMV area. I think. I could be wrong, and you could be right. You know what? Got my device right here. Only one way to settle this. Let's not guess. Let's just look it up. I don't want to spread misinformation, but I think he's from here. Let's look up Harris first and see where he's from. I got to stop calling this man You know I'm a Braves fan, and our center fielder is Michael Harris. I got to stop calling this man Michael Harris. Josh Harris. I think I called him at least Michael Harris at least once tonight. All right. So it says here he grew up in the Washington metropolitan area and graduated from the University of Pennsylvania, which is probably where you got. He's from the Philadelphia area. He's from Philly. So he was actually born in Chevy Chase, Maryland, and he grew up in the DMV. And then he studied in at Penn, and then went on to go to Harvard. So Harvard. So yes, he's got roots probably in both areas, but home is home. Ain't a replacing home, and DMV is home. So no, I don't think he's a double agent. You spend $6 billion. I'm pretty sure you're not spending $6 billion to be a double agent. Okay. I'm all but assured of that. Red Wings 01. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Red Wings 01 writes, gotta say Harris may be the MVP here, but nobody dishes out assists like Magic. He the GOAT for real. Again, wherever he goes, dubs follow, man. You know, Magic is here with it. Behind the back, he's passing out chips everywhere, man. So I'm just like, hey, Matt, you got one for us? He's like, as a matter of fact, I do. So obviously Harris is the real MVP. He's putting up the most bread here. But hey, Magic ain't too far behind along with Mitchell Rails. So it's a lot of good vibes right now. DJ23, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy DJ writes, I just wanted to say thanks for all the great content. It gets me through the late night shift. I told you, anything I can do, man. I just try to do my part. No matter how big or small it is, I just try to do my part. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. So I appreciate you, DJ, for the support. And if I'm helping you get through the night shift, I love it. Want more of it. Let's see. Commander Joe 21. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, what's good, bruh? Magic Johnson is our owner almost. This close. This close. A lot of history that can be made once that actually becomes official. So we're getting there, man. We're getting there. I mean, I was just soaking all of that stuff up today. But again, I need to cross the finish line first. The money's still not in the bank account. I know the deal is pending. We've agreed in principle. I understand that there's a 98.7% chance that everything's going to go the way that it's supposed to, and that ultimately I will wake up and the money will be in the account here shortly, but it's not there yet. Until that money hits the account and I can actually open up my app, open up my account and see those commas and all those numbers, I can't celebrate yet. I watched a really good show on Amazon Prime called Riches. Really good show. I enjoyed it thoroughly. You should check it out. You got some time. It's a good show. One of the dudes on this show felt like this deal that they had in place is going to net them some money. He felt like the deal was done. And so he went out and bought him a very expensive watch. Let's just say that deal fell through. And then he looked a little foolish for buying that watch. I learned a very long time ago a very valuable lesson from watching somebody else spend some money before they got it. and then spend like 2 years trying to dig themselves out of a hole for spending money that they didn't actually have yet. I remember Kanye West said, I got a problem spending before I get it. That's a bad problem to have. After watching that person struggle to dig themselves out of a hole 2 years after making that mistake, thinking that they were about to be rolling large in this profit sharing check that didn't come, I learned not to count my chickens before they hatch. So I know that this is going to happen, but I'm not celebrating till it does. That's all I'm saying. All right. Mr. Ron B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Mr. Ron B writes, location aside, I think it's a double up. I think it's a double up. If it's not a double up, then what's up, OG, triple OG? Location aside, how much will be needed to build a stadium plus a complex? I'm guessing $2 billion. I don't know the actual financial, the financials behind building a stadium. It's very expensive, very, very expensive. And that's why most owners look for help from the locale, from the constituents of the city and the state. And if we don't like you, we're not going to help you. This is the problem that Dan Snyder ran into. Because if the state is going to help you, that means that the state has to pass taxes. Now the constituents of that state and the city specifically have to pay more money. And we know that stadiums and things of that nature bring a lot of revenue to areas. And so people are very aware of what, a stadium will mean for the economy. But I'm not helping you out. I'm not paying extra money if I don't like you. I don't think you're a great businessman and I don't support what you're doing. So stadiums are very expensive. Building, I don't know if they'll need to build any more complexes. That's why they had potential bidders come and tour the facilities, because they've got a headquarters in Ashburn. They just built the bubble, right? They just put in, all of that stuff that Rivera kind of was spearheading there with the practice facility and the bubble and all that. Will they build brand new facilities like training facilities and get that stuff to be state of the art? Maybe. I wouldn't rule that out, but maybe not. Maybe not. So it costs a lot of money. I know that. I don't know how much. Let's see how much it costs, or let's see how much the Rams and Chargers Stadium. What is it? It's one of those banks, right? I don't remember. LA Rams Stadium. SoFi, that's it. SoFi. Let's see. Construction was $5 to $6 billion. So there you go. How much was Jerry's World? How much was AT&T Stadium? So SoFi is the most expensive. That's $5 to $6. MetLife, which I think Giants fans already don't like. That one was $2.1 billion. Allegiant Stadium, which is the new Raiders Stadium in Vegas, that one, it was pretty much $2 billion. And that's the newest stadium in the NFL right now. AT&T, which is Jerry's World, it was 1.87 billion. And Mercedes-Benz Stadium, that's in Atlanta. That's a relatively new stadium as well. That was 1.66. So yes, I would say that it's going to be somewhere in that $2 to $4 billion range, I would guess. Just depends on how extravagant you're looking to get. The more extravagant, the more money you're going to have to pay. So, two sounds about right. Abel Ambrosio, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, we got to be on Hard Knocks this year. I'm going to be honest with you, Abel. I don't think it's going to happen, man. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to end up being New York Jets. They're going to get Aaron Rodgers. And I just don't see how they don't end up on Hard Knocks. So, again, we'll see. I could be wrong about that, but you got a new ownership group coming in. Sam Howell, they got a little quarterback battle. You're right. Maybe they convinced themselves that Washington is where they need to be, but my money's on on the Jets. My money's on the Jets. All right. So that was the last super chat. So with that said, I am going to glide to the side, allow you guys to get back to whatever it was you were doing before I rudely interrupted. This was a lot of fun, as it always is. We're getting dangerously close to getting what is rightfully ours back, which is this franchise. It could happen any day now. It could happen any week now. It's not going to be more than a month from now. So here in the next month or so, we will be dancing in the streets. Shake it, Warrior. So everybody's got their ears to the street, eyes wide open, checking to see what the latest is on this. But it's pretty much a done deal. We're just waiting for everything to be finalized and for this nightmare to finally just be over. Meanwhile, there's still a draft that we're talking about. And we also will be, discussing the release of the schedule here shortly. So a lot of things going on, but nothing trumps getting this organization back. And we are as close as we've ever been to that finally taking place. Oh, happy day. Anyway, got a super chat here from Mr. Pink. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Mr. Pink writes, what up, Mr. T-double-E? Celebrate! I can't do the celebrate yet. We're not there yet. We close. But there's a reason why I didn't do it. Because as I just explained to you, we ain't there yet. But we're dangerously close. And I'm feeling good about it. As good as it gets. But anyway, y'all know what it is. When that time does come, oh, we celebrating. It's a party, man. Boy. Anyway, I'll be back for a podcast episode tomorrow. We'll preview the NBA playoffs, among other things. Also, I do want to say this. For those of you following me, because not all of you are basketball fans, and I'm aware of this, but for those of you who are basketball fans, specifically, I'm going to be talking about the Grizzlies. I'm going to be talking about the Grizzlies on IG. I'm going to go live on IG, talk about my Grizzlies after the games. Win or loss, I'll be there, chopping it up. Feel free to join me. I got a lot to say about the Grizzlies. There's a lot of times when I've been wanting to say things and I just kept it to myself. But I'm not going to do that this year because I feel like this team's finally ready, even though the injuries kind of put a little damper on it and it doused a little bit of cold water on what I felt like was a raging fire with this team. But they're still young, they're still hungry, we're still talented, and we still young and dumb, and we don't know any better. We don't know when to shut up. We don't know that we're not supposed to win here or we're not supposed to do this, and that's the beauty of it all. This is when ignorance is bliss. These young boys, they just don't know anything other than, hey, we're gonna be who we are. We're gonna be brash, whether you like it or not, and we're gonna be in your face. And so, win, lose, or draw, I'm gonna ride with my boys. So I'll be talking Grizzlies basketball on IG, on socials. So if you want to check the kid, feel free to do that. But I'll be live tomorrow for the podcast, talking basketball and any other football news that may arise. I got a lot to say about the Texans, talking about, the rumor. And again, it's lion season. The Texans may not have put that shit out there. But I do have a theory on CJ Stroud and why people are starting to sour on him. So that'll be something we'll talk about tomorrow on the podcast for sure. But anyway, I digress. Jamal Hamlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, hey, Lou, the first thing I'll change is the motto from take command to anybody can get it. Man, woman, child, giant, or midget. That's a good one. I see what you did there. Good one. You're right about the part about anybody can get it, but I don't know about man, woman, child, giant, or midget, though. No, I don't know about that part. But yeah, I love it. That was a good one. Jay Black, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Well, Jay Black writes, if Dan reneges, he's going to be DOA. LOL. Look, if at this point Dan backed out, we better not ever catch that man on American soil. It's going down. So somebody's going to prison behind that, because this shit would not be pretty. I tell you that right now. There would be he would be safer out of the country. I'll just say that. He would be much safer out of the country at this point. There's no going back now. But it crossed my mind, like, what if? I'm not even putting that foolishness in the atmosphere, but it was a fleeting thought. It literally lasted all of a millisecond. But I said, what if? Nah. Jamal Hamlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Writes, I know better, but I don't care, so I celebrated early last night. Now I'm in the gym looking like Martin when he did aerobics. Hey, it ain't nothing wrong with that, man. Ain't nothing wrong with it at all, man. It's early, but it's late. It's early, but it's late. So, I got told everybody earlier today, I'm not gonna stop you from celebrating. Somebody earlier tonight said they went and got a cigar. They got it's Commander's Christmas for them. They got a cigar they commemorating today as the day, April 13th, 2023 as the day. Hey, knock yourself out. Knock yourself out. I got no problems with it. I'm just telling you how I'm operating, how I'm moving. Doesn't mean you have to move the same way. So enjoy. That's one of my favorite episodes of Martin too. When he getting it. I like when the white lady says, "What do we do?" And he says, "What do we do?" When he looks over, he's like, "Yo, Tommy, they trying to punk us," and Tommy over there dying on the joint, right? And Cole laid out, on his stomach. Hey man, that's a hilarious episode, man. But anyway, I could talk Martin with y'all all night, but we're not gonna do that. Abel Ambrosio, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Double A. Abel Ambrosio, who writes, who you got playing in the NBA Finals this year? Hard to say, because the West, I think in the East, it's one or two teams. It's Boston or Milwaukee. I want to watch, because Milwaukee obviously has, a big injury with Chris Middleton. I want to make sure he's back and healthy before I make any determination. I want to see what these teams look like first. I think after the first round, I'll be able to tell you how I feel about these teams a little bit more. But injuries always play a major part. Yeah. A lot of times with these playoffs, it's a war of attrition. Who is able to stay healthy usually is ultimately going to be the team. I feel like we could have beat the Warriors last year. Ja gets hurt. that's that. The series is done at that point. You know what I mean? So playoff basketball is a war of attrition. Who can stay healthy and have, their best foot forward? Do the Raptors win the championship if KD doesn't go down? I don't know. Maybe they don't. But that's how the NBA playoffs go. So we'll see. Hard for me to say. I said all of that to say I don't know right now, especially in the West. Anybody could come out of the West, other than whomever the 8th seed is doesn't stand a chance. That's it. Even the Lakers could go all the way to the finals, and I wouldn't even blink. Okay, anybody has a chance in the West. So there's that. Anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the Command Post. Y'all know what it is. Post up, take command. I appreciate y'all chopping it up with the kid, hanging tough. This has been one hell of a journey to get to where we are, where we're about to see ourselves crown new ownership and get from underneath this dark period of Washington, football history. We didn't think that this day would come, or at least this soon. And we're this close to having it happen. Man, what a time to be alive. Anyway, you guys enjoy the rest of your evening. I will see you guys tomorrow for the Louie T Network podcast. If anything major happens, you know what time it is. I'll be back. You'll see this face invading your space. But until then, you guys have a good one. God bless and good night.